very kind to me, it has been because I'm allowed to work with children. I think that's
totally agree.
Probably.
We are blessed to be here.
I'm glad I'm not in the IT field and all. I probably died.
I know. Not with machines, not with.
I know. Yeah.
We are with people person. Okay, over to
Should we start?
We start live. Pavni, please don't hesitate. Never.
Shall we allow parents, ma'am?
Yes, please do. And we all are muted. Sort of.
Everybody, we are now on live on YouTube.
Good morning, Ranjita.
Good morning, ma'am.
Good morning, madam.
Good morning, everyone.
Papa got idlis, right? Papa got idlis.
Off the credit are really comfortable. Seating itself well cushioned. Window shades. Off the credit are really comfortable. Seating itself well cushioned. Window shades. Off the credit are really comfortable. Seating itself well cushioned. Window shades. Off the credit are really comfortable.
Good morning and welcome to all the parents and teachers of Eurokids School and Eurokids School. This is Pallavi and it's my pleasure to introduce today's speaker, Ms.Aarti C. Rajaratnam. Ms. Aarti C. Rajaratnam has a master's in applied psychology with specialization in clinical psychology, childhood and adolescent mental health from the University of Delhi South Campus. She's completed a special 14-month internship at the prestigious Rajkumari Amrit Kaur Child Guidance Center at New Delhi. She is a master practitioner and trainer in neuro-linguistic programming and is also trained in transactional analysis, dream analysis, and counseling. She is an innovative curriculum and education design consultant and has been instrumental in designing innovative classrooms and curriculum models in India and abroad. She helped rehabilitate over 7,500 children in the coastal areas of Tamil Nadu and after the tsunami in 2004, along with partner NGOs and teachers working in local schools. She developed and implemented a model of reaching out to children affected by disaster through art, music, play, and drama. She also trained volunteers on psychological first aid for children after the two massive earthquakes in Nepal in 2015. Ms. Aarti has trained teachers, professionals, parents, students, volunteers, and HR teams on a wide range of topics and has truly made a difference and a major contribution in each one of these projects. She is an inspiring speaker and has been invited across the globe to share her insights on creative education and psychology. Of the many prestigious talks delivered by her, the ones at the University of Wisconsin, two TEDx talks, and the talk at IIM stands out and requires special mention. Ms. Aarti's articles on psychology, education, and parenting are regularly published in journals, magazines, and all the leading newspapers in Tamil and English. Her book for parents, Understand to Communicate, on autism was published and released by Information and Resource Centre, Bangalore, in English and Kannada. Her book, Parenting Innocence to Inner Sense, has consistently featured in several bestseller lists since its release in 2013. I hope, and I'm sure most of you must be already following Miss Aarti on Facebook. She makes even the complex things smooth and easy for the parents and motivates them to discover multiple ways with a lot of practical advice about coping, making decisions about childcare and school, helping children with social skills, and making the present virtual school medium work better. I'm sure you would all agree to it at the end of this session. Today, we are ecstatic to have her with us to guide us on parenting during these difficult pandemic times, especially to many of us who are struggling to strike balance between work and home front, to make the right sense of this time for children. Her insights would surely give us a positive direction. Now, for some instructions, over to you, Priya ma'am.
Thank you, Pallavi. Good morning, one and all. Dear parents, for your information, the chat has been enabled. Start putting down your questions. We will take it up from there during the Q&A session. Also, please keep muted yourself throughout. We would like to see all your smiles, all your bright faces today. So please turn on your cameras too. I hope you have your papers and markers ready, and wishing you all happy learning, and we are all excited to have you, Aarti ma'am. A warm welcome once again. Over to you.
Thank you. And good morning to all of you. Thank you so much. I think this is a long overdue visit to Global Edge, virtually so, but still I think my heart is still in the right place and I'm so glad to be a part of today's session.
Thank you.
So good morning to all the parents. Like Krishnapriya mentioned, please keep yourself muted because it's very important for us to finish a little bit of information, and then we'll have the interaction, because that way learning is always better. Secondly, the virtual platform reduces our ability to learn, unfortunately, but this is considering the unprecedented times. This is the virtual platform, and this is the only way that we're able to connect. So I'm going to do what is best for the brain, which is hands-on learning. So I hope all of you have your piece of paper. It can be any size, don't worry. I've taken a small piece of paper. So please take a piece of paper. I hope you have that. We had mentioned that. If not, just pick it up. I'm sure you have a piece of paper. Now, why is this important? Because learning is experience, everything else is information. So if we don't do something hands-on, today's session, in the first 15-20 minutes, you'll really be excited. After that, your mind will wander and you'll forget everything that I've discussed. So please make sure that you have your piece of paper. Now, most important part, once you have your piece of paper, please divide it into 6 parts. Now, it doesn't matter if it's equal, unequal, but divide it into 6 parts. So I'd like you to actually fold it, and divide it into 6 parts. Some of you are wondering how to make it 6 parts. Don't worry, I'm sure you'll figure it out. So please divide your paper into 6 parts. Could I see it once you've divided it into 6 parts? Some of you got 4 equal parts, and then you wondered, oh my God, now what did I do? Should I get another piece and all that? So don't worry, just have 6 parts. Excellent. So some of you have your 6 parts ready. Some of you are just looking at other people, wondering how you make a paper into 6 parts. That's also fine. So once you have your paper in 6 parts, we're going to do something. So you have your marker. Please pick up any color that you like. And if you have just a pen, that's also fine. Please pick up a pen, because we're going through some very important aspects, because we've become so digitally addicted that we tend to put notes on our phone, on our laptop and things like that, but we never go back to it later. So which is why I wanted this piece of paper, because I want you to have this 3-dimensional experience of the texture, the feel and everything. So now the first corner. So you please choose this corner, the topmost corner on the left. Okay? That's the most important corner for any child in any parenting space. Okay. 10 years back, if we did a parenting session, most of you would have said, I know how to raise my child. You don't need to tell me. Now, after the virtual platform has challenged all of us, many of you, I saw your questions. We're all being challenged by these unprecedented times. So we'll go through the first corner. So this corner, we're going to have 3 very important aspects of the child's development. Now, we're all parents, very young children. So this is the most important corner. You forget everything else also, it's fine. But these 3 are the most important. So the first point that I will touch upon, and it's a very dangerous thing to say in a session as the first word is sleep. Okay. And all of you wondering, oh my God, she said sleep. Is it an instruction for us? No, it's the first and the most important need for a child, a young child. So please note that down, write down sleep as the first aspect on the left corner, the most important box of today's workshop. Why is sleep so important? Because we are the most sleep deprived generation ever to have lived on planet Earth. Okay. And especially with the binge watching culture having come in since the pandemic, even our children are sitting there till 2 o'clock, sitting and watching series after series with us, and it is destroying the brain in many ways. What are the most important things of sleep? One, your child needs about 10 to 12 hours of sleep. Now, many of you are wondering, do I even give my child 6 hours of sleep? Actually, no. If you actually calculate, you'll notice that our children are going to bed later, waking up earlier, and then they do what is called a catch-up sleep during the day. Somewhere in the afternoon, they go into a very deep sleep, and that's not healthy. That's not healthy, because nighttime sleep helps a child's brain to remove stress hormones. There are filter cells called glial cells in the brain which remove stress hormones. Now, if this does not happen, you're going to have an extremely stubborn child. Many of your questions were, ma'am, my child is not listening to me. Ma'am, my child is angry. My child is not listening to me. So these are because the glial cells have not removed the stress hormones. The child is cranky. So when they wake up in the morning, they're not excited about facing the day. They're crying for the first 1 hour. You don't know what to do. You think it's hunger. You think it's this. It's just that there has not been enough sleep. Am I making sense to everybody? Some of you are just looking at it and saying, oh yeah, I think that's what it is. Because we're also sleep deprived. Child is also sleep deprived. So the first thing that you need to do is to ensure that your child has 10 to 12 hours of sleep, nighttime sleep, not daytime sleep. Now here, you need to have two things in place. One is a ritual before the child goes to sleep. What is a ritual? Before the child goes to sleep, you need to decide what time you're going to get your child to bed. It doesn't mean today I am tired at 9 o'clock, child should also sleep at 9 o'clock. Tomorrow I'm going to be awake till 11 o'clock, child can also be awake till 11 o'clock. It's not like that. If you decide it's 9 o'clock, it's going to be 9 o'clock. Okay, first rule. Second, once you fix the time, 1.5 hours before that, no screens, no phone, no laptop, no iPad, nothing. Because the moment you expose it to that bright light that comes out from a screen, the child's brain thinks it's daytime. And so they will not be able to sleep as well as they would if they did not have a gadget. Am I making sense to everybody? Right? So this is the most important rule. So 1.5 hours before you have fixed the time for sleep, whether it's a child or an adult, it goes for you as well. So if you're going to be sitting down and reading your Kindle at just before you go to sleep, believe me, you will not fall asleep immediately. Right? But when you read a book, it's different because it doesn't give you that white light. So I hope that makes sense to all of you. Now, the second aspect of the nighttime ritual, please calm them down before they go to sleep. So don't have exciting laughter and play and video games and all of this before they go to sleep, because you get those exciting hormones into the brain. The child is going to lie down and be awake till 2 hours after you put them to bed. I know mothers who come and tell me, ma'am, 9 o'clock I put him to sleep, till 11 he was chatting with me. Check what you did just before they went to sleep. You had this exciting conversation about some aliens and all that, your child's not going to sleep. So even if you choose a bedtime story, please choose something that's not very adventurous. Have a bedtime story that's very calm and says the baby was safe in the hands of the mother, the father, and things like that, so that the child feels safe. The safe hormones come into the body. And the most important aspect of the nighttime is what I call a bedtime debrief. Okay, the bedtime debrief is your conversation with your child just before they're going to sleep. Kanna, what did you learn today? What did you like today? What would you like to learn tomorrow? Do you know that I love you very much? Give them very positive feedback about their whole day. Make sure that the child is going to bed with the reassurance that you love them very much. Am I making sense to all of you? Usually nighttime is when we are saying, why did you do this? Tomorrow, or you see what I'll do to you. So the child's brain is going to bed with a lot of stress. So when they wake up, they're not going to be as happy. But when you go to bed knowing that mommy and daddy love me, or amma and appa love me, they're going to have that working on the subconscious for 10 to 12 hours. When they wake up in the morning, there's a lot more happiness in the child. So the first rule and the most important is sleep. And the sleep schedule has 3 important points, which are no screen time 1.5 hours before, no extreme activities 1.5 hours before, and the most important, the bedtime debrief. Make sure that your child has this extremely loving space from which they go to sleep. The second need, so in the top left corner, the first need was sleep, and the sleep has 3 rules. The second rule, which is very, very important for an Indian family, eating and food. Okay, now if I was visiting Global Edge, I'm sure you would have taken care of my food and you would have asked me what would you like to eat, and I know all of that, because in our culture food is such an important thing. So if the child is not eating somewhere, we become very bad parents, right? And so right from the beginning, we've started giving them these chota beam kind of videos to make them eat. Many of your questions were, he's not eating without watching the iPad, watching the cartoon. Please remember, in the brain, anything that fires together wires together. So if you do 2 things together, it will become common. So let's assume that I have this habit. Every time I'm doing a webinar, I have to drink something from this cup, right? So if this cup is not here, my brain will not work as well. Yeah, I'm just giving an example, not that I'm addicted to this. I'm just saying that if you get used to doing something in a certain way, that's exactly how you will do it. So if you've made your child used to watching this and then eating, that's going to be the habit they will follow always, which is what you need to avoid and need to change immediately. Because children who look at screens and eat have very poor neurological development. When I say that, what I want you to understand, now for you and me, when we were growing up, we used to have a lot of play outside, etc. So we used to feel hungry in 3 hours. In 3 hours, whether they gave us food or not, we would come back and ask for something, because we understood this sensation in our body is hunger. Today's child doesn't understand the hunger cue. They just start crying, they throw tantrums, and mothers will say, oh, he's got angry, ma'am, I think he's hungry. Now, if I give him food, he'll settle down, because we have suppressed all those natural sensations the body has. So please, if you've gotten your child used to using a gadget to eat, please remove it immediately. 1 or 2 meals, if they don't eat, it's fine. What you need to do is to ensure that they're looking at their plate and eating. And to ensure that they're eating well, divide whatever the size of your plate, divide it into 3 portions. For young children, this is very important. Divide your plate into 3 portions. The first portion must be a carbohydrate. So it can be rice, millets, wheat, any of the carbohydrates. Don't take everything just because I said, oh, she said rice, carbohydrate, rice, millets, wheat. Don't take everything. Take something, just one, right? So you take so much of rice, same amount of protein, physically same quantity of protein, physically same quantity of vitamin. So the 3 portions are carbohydrate, vitamin, and protein, and they must be physically the same quantity. Normal habit, put lots of carbohydrate, little bit of protein, little bit of vitamin, and the child doesn't feel hungry after 3 hours. If they're equal, the child's body will be able to digest it with complementary enzymes, and in 3 hours, they will feel hungry. That is how you will be able to change the gadget habit while eating. Am I making sense to all of you? Right? Because normally what happens is we know the child will eat only one kind of noodles. It has to be white in color. Otherwise, my child won't eat. So we don't add any vegetables, don't add anything else. And that's where we destroy the food habits for the child. And so the child gets used to drinking a glass of milk as a natural habit. He's not eating, so let's give a glass of milk. Not eating, glass of milk. This becomes very, very dangerous over a period of time. I know all the kindergarten teachers are smiling because, when if they were coming to school regularly, that's what would happen. They'd say, ma'am, if he doesn't study, it's fine. Just make sure he eats because he's not eating at home. So, the first 3 months in any school, we'll be actually setting the food habits, but please set it at home because food habits are some things that have to be set only at home, not in school. Am I making sense to you? As caring as a teacher can be, only the parents must set the eating habits right because it's a bonding activity. So I hope I made the second rule very clear. The third, the most important one, the toilet habits. And this age is when they need to become aware of interoception because of this prolonged use of the diaper, which has become a recent trend in many homes. Many children are not able to communicate the need to use the toilet even when they're 5 or 6 years old. And that's very, very important for their learning later on concepts like mathematics and English and science and all of these things. So please, since they're at home, have these sleep and eating habits regularized first. Based on that, set the toilet habits, make it a calming experience. Don't threaten them, don't frighten them. Just set these 3 habits. If these 3 physiological needs are set properly, about 80% of so-called behavior problems will stop. Many times, what we look at as behavior problems are actually because these needs are not regularized. Am I making sense to everybody? So we got the first box, the first rectangle filled with 3 needs, your sleep habits, your eating habits, and your toilet habits, and these are the primary. The second one, please go to the second square or rectangle that you have. And this square, by and large, for me, is the most important box. It's the box where you will have movement and play. Okay, it's the box that you will have movement and play. Now, everybody is inside the house during the pandemic. We're scared to send our children out. But even before the pandemic, I know that many of us kept our children only inside because we were scared to send them out. We didn't want to send them out. We didn't make time out. And that is what really is dangerous for the child because play and movement is like oxygen for the nervous system. Just like you take in oxygen for your lungs, for the nervous system, play and movement are oxygen. A child who doesn't have play and movement will have learning related problems, behavior related problems, and more importantly, emotional regulation problems. Your stubbornness, tantrums, everything will come in. Okay, now this is most important since we're doing a session for Hyderabad. I have to tell you something very important. Play is not activity. Play is not something you will buy from the market and give. Play is not something that you will tell them how to do. Play has 3 very important rules. First, it must be self-driven. If the child did not start it, it's not play. First rule. Second, more important, it's purposeless. Child is not starting the game because they want to get somewhere, do something, win a prize. That is adult. Adults will tell them, see, start here and finish here. This is how you start, this is how you finish, this is how you get the prize. That is an adult expectation. Children play in purposeless ways because they're developing the brain. Am I making sense to all of you? And the third most important, when children start playing, they start an activity and it leads to mastery. It teaches them something much higher. Okay, so I can give you a lot of examples of how children play. I'll give you a small way in which how play evolves, because then you'll understand it, because you would have observed it in your young child. So when your baby is about few days, few months old, before 6 months, all of the play is around the mouth. Okay, so if you gave them this pen, your baby will take it to the mouth. And probably your mother-in-law told you, I think he's hungry, why don't you feed him? Actually, it has nothing to do with hunger at that time. It's actually, this is the only input for the child. So the brain says, what is this new thing you've given me? So they take your chain, they'll put it in the mouth, they'll take your spectacles, put it in the mouth, because this is the input for them. Anything you give, this is the input, because this is the part that's in between the left and right hemisphere, and that's how they can take an input. Till then, the brain is not differentiated into logical and creative part. Am I making sense to all of you? Right? Around 6 months, the child's hands will also start working. Okay. So this is the time when you give them something, they'll hold it like that, tightly like that, pull your chain in their hands, pull your spectacles. So those of you who wear spectacles have that experience of the child pulling it away. That's because they're trying to take feedback. If they don't understand it in the hands, they'll take it to the mouth. Am I making sense to all of you? Right? And this is when, even if an ant or an insect is on the ground, the child will take it to the mouth. Not because they want to eat the insect, that's because they don't know what it is and they're trying to make meaning of it. This is why giving them tabs and all are useless, because that's 18 months. Whatever you give in your child's hand will be throwing down. Have you seen the throwing down phase? You give them a spoon, it'll be thrown down. You give them a ball, it'll be thrown down. You give them the iPad also, it'll be thrown down. Have you seen that? That throwing down phase is how they develop the ability to do spelling later on in life. So those of you who asked me the question, ma'am, he's not able to do spelling. He confuses sounds. This is the child that has missed out this throwing down phase. Each aspect of play develops an aspect of learning. Okay, that doesn't mean today you give them 50 things to throw. Okay, start throwing. Let's get your spellings in place. That's not how you develop spelling. The basic way in which you have to do it is to allow them to develop that game. The fourth stage, 2.5 years, is when they use the whole body. That's when they're under the table, under the chair, all of these things. And this age is when they have the fantasy play, which is doctor, doctor, teacher, teacher. They'll imitate all of you doing cooking, making biryani, all of these things. And this is the most important phase. So in play, there are three things that I would ask you to focus on. Does your child get to use the whole body? Because if they're not using the whole body, then something is missing. So, there's a vertical window here. They can climb this. Climbing is very important for them to plan their work. Crawling is very important. So you get an old box, like a fridge box or something, let the child crawl in and come out. Crawling is very important. Climbing is very important. Jumping is very important. Hopping is very important. And a little bit of dangerous play is important. They have to learn limits. Don't tell them you'll fall down, you'll get hurt. No, they need to do that to understand how much of my limits can I test. Am I making sense to all of you? So please don't restrict your children. Give them safe experiences, and that's very important. The second, have a lot of scope for imagination. You don't need to buy toys as much as you need to allow them to explore. And don't buy expensive toys, because children will get very bored. Let me give you a small example. This mother went online, onto one of the online shopping sites. She bought the most expensive toy for her child. Child opened the gift, took the toy out, kept it on the table, and started playing with the cardboard carton. For almost 1 hour, the child was playing with the empty box, and the mother was so upset. She said, I spent so many thousands for this toy. The toy is not interesting as much as something that is unfulfilled or incomplete. The incomplete things in your house are the things that excite the child, develop the brain. What are incomplete things? Empty cardboard boxes, old vegetables that you've cut off and thrown the waste, kitchen waste. These are the things our children love to play with. Don't buy expensive toys. I'll give you a beautiful example for this. All of you have heard of NASA. NASA has a subsidiary company called JPL. JPL does all the innovation for NASA. So many years back, this is about 20 years back, many of the senior scientists who had done some of the best innovation were retiring. So the scientists went to Caltech, MIT, some of these best of the best institutions, and got postdoc, PhDs, all of these people, gold medalists and all that, for the innovation, for the next level. And unfortunately, not much innovation was done by any of them. So the scientists were very shocked. They're like, we did so much innovation with so little. And here, these are people with PhDs and postdocs, and they're not able to do it. So they got the psychologist Nate Jones to work with them, and he does what is called a play history. He went back on the play of the child, and he found out that the original team were born after the World War and the Great Depression. So they were born in poverty without much. So they innovated all their toys. They created toys from things that were available. The second generation were born when there was a lot of economic upturn. So they were taking these Olympiad exams and these certification programs and all of these things, but never played hands-on. So their innovation suffered so much. So if you really would like to help children, allow them to play with what is available. Don't keep investing on expensive toys, because if you do that, what your child will do, they'll keep breaking the toys so you can buy new things, because the brain needs to keep creating. It cannot play with the same thing again and again. Am I making sense to all of you? Some of you are just wondering, oh, this is what my child has been doing. This is why he's breaking it. Don't call them destructive. It's a form of creativity. And when you give fixed toys, ready-made toys, you're destroying that aspect of exploration that the child needs. So instead, if you give them a box, they'll make it they'll make it a shoe one day, they'll make it a flying saucer another day. Allow them to create. And that innovation comes from incomplete toys. The third aspect, before a child holds something in the head, they must hold it in their hands. If I do not hold a concept in my hands, I cannot hold it in my head. So if I were to say this is one and I hold this pen, understanding what one is has to happen in the hands first, only then to the brain. Because Nate Jones' study said, if you do not hold something in your hands, the brain doesn't get feedback. The brain needs a hand, the hand needs a brain. So those of you who ask me questions about, ma'am, he reverses letters, he's not able to remember spelling, etc., the hand component in the learning is missing. Neuroscientists have been able to prove when a child learns through play, they need 4 repetitions. When they learn by teaching, like I teach you and they learn, they need 400 repetitions. So when you have confusion, please make it hands-on. And that's very, very important. The next area that I would go to, take the paper, the third box that you'll go into. And in this, you're going to mention the 3 areas of behavior. So we've worked on the 3 physiological needs. We've talked about the 3 areas of play. Now the most important, behavior. Now, when we talk about behavior problems, there are only 3 simple rules for parents. And this is not for the child, this is for the parent, because behavior is a relational equation. What I'm doing will reflect in my child's behavior. So if I change my parenting, the child's behavior will change. So what are the 3 rules? The first rule, most important rule, model, don't manipulate. What does model, don't manipulate mean? If I want a behavior in my child, I must have that behavior in myself first. I don't want my child to get angry. Are you getting angry? Because if you're getting angry, your child will get angry. Okay. I want to eat healthy food. I want my child to eat healthy food. Are you eating healthy food? Because if you're not eating healthy food, child is not going to be doing it. I want my child to do yoga and be calm. Are you doing yoga and being calm? If not, it's not going to be there. Because model, you are the most important aspect of what the child will learn. So if you'd like a behavior in your child, it must be there in you first. So if you don't want your child to be on the gadget all the time, you must stop using the gadget all the time. Because we are using it and saying, see, I can use it for office, but you can't use it for your work. And the child is saying, how is that possible? Because they're young children. Remember, they learn doctor, doctor, teacher, teacher. So they will also learn gadget, gadget. Please remember that. I hope I'm making sense to all of you. And some of you having like a slight guilt trip here. Don't worry, we'll find solutions together. The second rule, more important than model, don't manipulate, listen, don't lecture. Okay, so when children make a mistake, our usual way of working, when I was young, we went 15 kilometers to school. We did not have shoes. We did not have this. We did not have that. Children in Somalia don't have food, etc. Please no. Children don't really need all those lectures. They need you to listen. I'm stomach full, Amma. Don't give me more food. That's what they say. Instead of saying Somalia, you can say, okay, tomorrow we'll reduce the food a little bit. Let the child know how much food is enough food. Am I making sense to all of you? 2-3 days. They will take about 2-3 days to figure out, okay, 1 idli is not enough, right? 1 puri is not enough. They will take some time, but give them that time to explore. When I say listen, it's not just the words. Listen to their actions. What is my child saying when he's breaking that toy? My child is saying, I'm bored of this. Give me something else, right? Instead of saying you're a bad boy for breaking that, you're making the child guilty for communicating. Am I making sense to all of you? Right? The next area, and the third rule in behavior, the most important one, communicate, don't correct. Okay? And when I say communicate, don't correct, there are 3 rules I will give you for this age group. Error, mistake, crime. Error, mistake, crime. You have to differentiate the 3. Young children will make a lot of errors. What is error? Error is when I don't have the knowledge, I don't have the information, I don't have the intention. Okay, so let's say your child is seeing this glass. For the first time they're seeing glass, they're very excited. They want to know what it is, what will it do? Because anything that you give them at this age, they want to explore. Now, when he's looking at this, it slips and falls down. He does not have the knowledge that it will break. He does not know that it will, I shouldn't drop it. Okay, I don't have knowledge, I don't have intention. That's called error. Am I making sense to you? Now, if you want to correct an error, if you don't want your child to explore this glass, keep it locked. Don't keep it near the child and say, don't touch it. Because the brain does not have the concept of do not do something. If I told you, don't watch this series on Netflix, you'll go to that series first. Okay? If I tell you, don't go here, that's what you will do first, because the brain cannot understand that concept. So when a child makes an error, give them a very clear child proofing. Take away from the environment whatever the child should not use. The second, mistake. I have the knowledge, but I don't have the intention. I know glass will break. Okay? But I didn't intend to break it. It slipped from my hand and fell. That is knowledge, but no intention. Mistake. In this case, you give them choices. Kana, if you want to hold the glass tumbler, we'll hold it with 2 hands. If you want to hold the glass with 1 hand, I'll give you stainless steel or plastic. Am I making sense? So for mistake, you will give choices. For error, you will child-proof. For mistake, you will give choices. Third, crime, most important. Crime, I have knowledge. I have intention. I did it purposely. And young children don't do that, I promise you that. Okay? But crime, I have knowledge. I have intention. I purposely dropped it because I'm angry with you. You may see it more with teenagers, but with young children, crime is very, very rare. If a child does do this with knowledge and intention, break the glass purposely, along with you, let them clean up. Let them learn that when I do this, this is the consequence. So they scribble on the wall. Is it error, mistake, or crime? It's error because they're exploring space. Then you tell them, Kanna, let's not write on this wall. You can write here. I'll give you a writing surface. Okay? And the child writes there. Then that's fine. The child knows they shouldn't write. And suddenly, along with a friend, they got excited and they drew. Then what would you do? You just give them sponge and soap and let them wash it. Let them learn that, paper is where I will draw. So you need to work on it very, very gently. So when I say communicate, don't correct, find out if it's an error, if it's a mistake, if it's a crime. And for this, it's very important we set what is called a connection ritual. For 15 minutes a day, spend time with your child doing something you and your child enjoy. During that time, have a lot of communication listening to your child, because when you start listening to them, you'll realize how beautiful their world is. And you will not lose your temper when their behavior is not up to the mark or up to your expectations. I hope that answers many of your questions. The last 2, learning. How does learning happen? A lot of you had consistent issues about learning. Learning takes time, number 1. Learning takes a minimum of 21 days. It takes 90 days to become a habit. So don't expect that today I taught flashcard, then I taught the same thing along with a YouTube video, and then I did this, but you still forgot tomorrow. It will take 21 days for it to register. And it will take 90 days for it to become something they can't forget. So don't rush. Second, learning requires experience and exposure. So this is your 5th box, right? So learning has 3 areas. 1, it will need experiences. 2, it will need exposure. And 3, it will need relationships. Children cannot learn without relationships. If you think that you can get them the latest software, the latest app, and you have a horrible relationship, no learning will happen. Children learn because they love you, not because the content is interesting. Am I making sense to all of you? All of you have experiences of a teacher that you liked very much and a subject you didn't like very much. The teacher that you like, you will end up liking the subject. The subject you didn't like, you will notice it was made that because the teacher was bad. Am I making sense to all of you? Don't become that parent. Don't become that parent. Don't become the parent who's all the time saying, see, that fellow has finished 15 pages, you finish. Become that parent says, okay, let's try and do this together. Because learning requires relationships. Without relationships, learning is compromised by 90%. It's always in the connection, never in the content. You can get the best PowerPoint presentation, the best Flash presentation, the best video. But if you do not have a connection with the child, no learning will happen. So for learning to happen, there are 3 things you must avoid, and that is your 6th box. That is your 6th box. What must you avoid to reduce learning? First box, most important, no screen time. No screen time. And you may be saying, what is she saying? Artificial intelligence is coming up, coding is coming up, everything will come. But without experiences for the nervous system, just a screen will not be enough. I need to play hands-on because the hand needs a brain, brain needs a hand. Second thing it needs, don't teach explicitly. What is this cat? What is this dog? What is this boy? No. Have conversation. You know, I saw this cat on the wall. It was drinking milk. You know, come, let's go and see if it's there. Make experiences so rich. Have the conversation around that experience. Children will learn the word, children will learn the experience, and they will know how to present it in a book. Instead of that, we buy these colorful books and keep teaching them 100 times. My son can name all the flags of all the countries. It doesn't matter. That's just memory. Learning is different. Am I making sense to all of you? Don't do false phonetic programs. Cat, cat. No. Have conversation. Children will learn how to say cat, how to spell cat. Am I making sense to you? I'm sorry, I'm bursting a couple of bubbles, but I'm meant to do that, right? And the last aspect of it, most important, don't compare. Don't make them compete. Because when I'm competing, I'm destroying learning. Let me give you the scientific base for it. This is the model of the brain. It's from Dan Siegel. I'm just using this model. Let's say this is the spinal cord. We all have a spinal cord. This is spinal cord. This is the brain stem. Okay, this part is already developed in the mother's womb. When the baby is in the mother's womb, this part is developed because this is needed for survival. This is the one that tells you something is dangerous, don't do it. And you hear a loud, cracker burst outside. This is the part that reacts, increases your heart rate. It says, run, you have to run, it's not safe. This is that part. This is the part that gets activated when you make a child compete. When you compare a child with someone else, this is what comes up. It says, you're not good enough, run. This doesn't say you're not good enough, improve yourself. No, that comes only for adults, for some adults, not all. The second part of the brain is this one, which we call the limbic system, or the emotional part of the brain. This is partially developed in the mother's womb, but mostly developed during relationships. Remember, I said there's no learning without relationships? That's because this part develops every time I interact with somebody. When I'm kind to someone, this part develops. When I'm rude to someone, this part develops. It decides what experiences I must have. The last is this part. So this is one hemisphere of the brain. This is the cortex. Learning happens here. But these two must be safe. So when you make a child compete, you're only activating this part. These two will not develop. Which is why it's very important not to look at only the grades. Look at how you can support your child when they're learning. So your child struggles with writing. Sit with them, play with them, work on activities that can help them develop those muscles that are useful for learning. And that's how they learn. So I'm going to stop with this because I've spoken for 40 minutes. And I know on the online medium, 40 minutes is a lot of time. Right? So I'll open it out to questions. And if there are questions, you could probably unmute yourself and you can ask.
I think everybody is so engrossed in your talks that we haven't seen any questions in the chat till now. Even I've been just busy writing throughout. Right. So parents, please shoot up.
So basically, I gave you this, right? You've got your 6 boxes filled out. My suggestion is to go back on each of these and make a red mark on the areas that you need to change.
Hello.
Yes, sir.
My name is Prusha. Yeah.
Yes, sir. Tell me.
My son's name is Rudran. So I'm having a typical problem. My son uses both the hands for writing.
How
So
old is he?
We don't need only.
and drawing also. So I thought that I'll ask him to use only one hand. So I tried to teach him with right hand. He writes. Then again he uses his left. Okay, then I tried to do it on left hand. He uses left as well as right. Now I'm confused. It's been almost 7-8 months. I
Right.
am still
How old
confused.
is he, Harsha?
He is 3 years, 6, 7 months.
Or just give him some time. Don't do any writing if that's okay. First, okay. Second,
Mhm.
I need you to observe him when he's not aware that you're looking at him. Okay. Now, what
He
happens is, I'll just give you an example. So
okay,
now, for
okay.
example, if I keep a pen in front of him, he'll
Hmm.
usually look peripherally and see his upper watching me. Because if you're watching him, then he is likely to choose the hand that you find
Hmm.
better, which is probably what happened, right? So I'll give you 2, 3 activities that you may need to do, and then probably you could give some feedback to the school, and I will be in touch with them to sort of guide you through this. First thing, give him some object like a ball or something like that. Let
Hmm.
him throw with both hands. You take a large inflated ball, you can take a small
Hmm.
basketball, small football. Let him throw with both hands.
Hmm.
Initially, just get both hands involved already. That's
Okay.
first important. Second, why? Because he needn't know that I have to do this hand, this hand. So let him just get comfortable with throwing with both hands, because we're
Hmm.
trying to get him to become comfortable with the fact that I can use both hands. So when you are modeling it, remember, model, don't manipulate. So you also will throw with both hands. So you can probably do like stand against a wall. If you don't have a lot of place to play outside, you can just stand and just throw the ball to each other and catch with both hands. Use both hands, and don't at any point mention this hand or that hand or any of these things. Don't mention right, left, anything. That's the
Hmm.
first one. Second,
Okay.
then you start playing by throwing with one hand, slightly smaller ball, and
Hmm.
notice 2 things in this. With which hand is he able to throw a greater distance?
Okay.
Second, with which hand is he able to use a better direction? See, because if you throw with a non-dominant hand, if you're right-handed, when you throw with your left hand, you don't have the accuracy that you will have with your right hand.
Okay.
You get what
Okay.
I'm saying?
Yeah, yeah,
So
I'm
you
getting
have
it.
to throw with both, but you have to observe both. Don't make a note of, oh, okay, right hand. Don't do that. Just very
Hmm.
casually let him throw with both. You can have a small target. You can have a basket where he throws, things like that, right?
Hmm.
So make it very gentle. Next, make him kick the ball. With
Okay.
which leg is he able to do it better? See, because we
Hmm.
are looking at brain dominance,
Hmm.
right? Another activity, and since all of you are here, let's play it as a game, because if I was in person, I would have made you play. So if all of you have another piece of paper, if you're lucky, please take this and I'll make you do this. So make a small hole in the center of a paper. And I'm sorry, Ranjita ma'am, because I'm somebody who's spontaneous. I just pick up any activity and I do it. So I hope that's okay. So what I'd like you to do, Harsha, you can just make something like this, like a small pinhole camera, as we call it. So what
Okay.
you need to do is to keep your hands stretched out like this and
Hmm.
keep this hole. So
Hmm.
I'm looking at it. There's a tube light in front of me. So I'm going to keep it like this. And with
Hmm.
both my eyes, look at that tube light through
Hmm.
this hole. Okay.
Hmm.
And gently bring it very close to my face.
Hmm.
Okay. And those of you who have a piece of paper, would you like to do it? Let's see how it works. Okay. Bring it very close. Keep both your eyes open. The eye will try to close. Keep both your eyes open. And when it comes really close to you, tell me which eye you came to.
Okay.
And all of you would have noticed it came to your dominant side. It did not go to your non-dominant side.
Yes.
Yes. So that's another way to test.
It sounds very interesting. I'll
Yes,
definitely
it is,
try.
sir. I love these activities because this is how I teach teachers.
This is
But
good. This.
this is another way in which you can test. Okay,
The
but you
other
can't tell him we're
thing,
going to check this eye and all that. We say we play a game and keep both your eyes
yeah.
open. We'll keep looking. So you play different things. Go outside, look at a crow. Go outside, look at the sun. You can do different things. And as he's doing it, notice which eye it goes back to.
Sure.
Right? He
This.
doesn't
This.
know it's the hands, and both hands are engaged in this. So he's not going to use. You're not going to observe hands, but you're going to observe
Hmm.
eyes.
Hmm.
Right?
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
I'm guessing that he may go to his left eye, because left might have been the dominant side, and he would have got confused between the left and the right. Okay. And the
Yes, it
last
might
task,
be a case because whenever I give him anything,
he picks with the
seven out
left.
of 7 out of 10 times he gives his left hand
Right.
to
And the
take it.
last aspect, Harsha, I would ask you to do, see which hand he uses to open the door knob, open a latch. All this will be left.
Okay, I'll
I'm
do that.
guessing. I'm
I
guessing.
try.
Okay.
Yeah,
And the
I
last, if you want, I can give you a million activities. But another thing that you can do: take 2 pieces of chart or paper, put a carbon sheet. Remember, we used to use carbon paper. Put a
Yeah, yeah.
carbon sheet in the center. Give him a pencil. Let him scribble with the right hand, and then in another sheet, scribble with the left hand. See which one leaves a better impression on the carbon. That
Okay.
will tell you which hand has better pressure.
Okay. So you want me to place a carbon?
So paper,
Yeah,
another
on a paper.
paper, carbon
Yeah.
in the center. Okay. And
Got
I
it.
use thin chart if it's possible, because children use a lot of pressure on some side. So you do that and then let him draw. And on this sheet, you need to see which one left a deeper impression.
Sure. This is
That
also a
will
good one.
help you, Harsha. But at the moment, if you can, for the next 2 months, don't give him any writing, coloring, all these things. Let him do
Coloring,
activities.
likes coloring actually. That's
He will
okay.
like many things. Okay. But till we get the dominance clear, don't teach him anything with one single hand. Let him have the freedom. Remember, I told you there are 3 rules: it's self driven, it's purposeless, and it has to lead to the next skill. For that, you shouldn't do explicit teaching.
So if you once he craves for painting,
Yeah.
shall I give him the crayons and then he'll use definitely both the hands.
See, don't tell him which hand to use.
Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
that I
Just
won't do.
observe,
Yeah.
just observe. But my suggestion to you, if you just let him be free, even playing with a car. So if let's assume this is a car, even moving the car, he might use his dominant hand.
Okay.
Where your observations will come in are the things that are not taught. What is not taught, which hand does the brain prefer? That will be the dominant side.
I tried my best to understand. Till now, what I get is he almost uses both the hands equally. I don't know whether it can happen or not.
There are people who we call ambidextrous, people who can use both hands. But before we decide on that, could you just go through these activities
Yes,
and
yes,
give us some
definitely.
feedback?
The
It would
paper and
help
the
us.
whole thing should work well. I will definitely try this as well as the carbon paper
Sure.
trick. Thank you so
And
much,
thank you
ma'am.
for your question. It was a beautiful question. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. My pleasure. And thanks for the explanation. It was very good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Aarti ma'am, we have a lot of questions now.
Oops, I know, I know. I thought
Yes,
so.
lot
Somebody's
of
going to
them
help me
now.
with it. Yes,
Okay.
Pallavi.
So I'll start with the first one. Is
Yeah.
punishing child a healthy practice? If so, what are the ways to punish?
Punishment as such, I'm personally against, because punishment is a form of violence. And violence teaches me might is right. And when I teach children might is right, I'm creating bullies. Okay, let's be very honest about the chain in which we create bullies who will not take responsibility for the action. Instead, remember error, mistake, and crime. See what the child has done. I don't need to suffer the consequences of what I've done. I need to learn how to change my behavior. See, the intention must be very clear. My intention is I need to let my child know this is how this is done. That's the most important intention. Now, my child not finishing the homework, okay, and I punish them by taking away TV. Did I teach the child to finish the homework the next time? Usually, no. What I would have taught my child is throw a tantrum next time so that they will give you the TV anyway. Okay, that's how we develop tantrums in children. So let's be very clear about this. So what I set as a consequence must have a direct impact on the behavior that you wish to change. Let me give you an example from my own school. So for the second standards, because the same age group I thought would be a good example. So for the second standard children, I taught them origami, paper folding, okay? And so the children started tearing all their notebooks and making boats and cranes and butterflies and everything. And the parents came to me in the PTM and complained saying, ma'am, what have you taught them now? They've started tearing every book. Okay. Now, as an intention, I don't want my child to tear paper anymore from the notebook, but I want them to do paper folding. I must be very clear what I want. What is the outcome? I want them to learn. I want them to explore, but I don't want them to tear from the book. So I want to change one aspect of their behavior, not the whole behavior. When I'm clear about this, the next step that we took, I said, okay, every day I would cut out different colored paper and leave it in the room. If a child used that paper, it would go onto the notice board. Any other paper wouldn't go on the notice board. So children started silently noticing, ma'am puts her papers on the notice board, not what we tear. The tearing behavior stopped in most children. Next, what we did was we started choosing the ones that were made well with proper completion and put it out. So we developed 2 behaviors. One, we stopped the tearing from the notebook. 2, we taught them to finish neatly to be able to put it up on the notice board. So give me an example of this. So when you say punishment, when I'm saying you're a bad boy or I take away something, when I do that and make them suffer the consequences of their action, learning doesn't happen. They learn to hide their actions. So if I break something, I hide it from my mother. If I say lies, I try to cover up. I don't own up. So punishment actually destroys integrity. Instead, I could sit down with my child and say, okay, I understand that you've done this and I'm not very happy about it. But what are the options? What can we do here? Very young children also understand. We think that children don't understand because they can't speak. So you can give them options. You say, okay, would you like to eat now or after 5 minutes? Child is wasting food. Would you like to write now? Would you like to do your maths homework first or your science homework first? So you're giving them choices, but they're not actually like major choices. We give them, do you want to do homework or you want to go and play? Child will choose play, right? Have them as equal, and then it helps. So punishment doesn't work. Instead, check if it's error. If it's error, child proof. If it's mistake, give them choices that are equal. If it's crime, then the consequence must be a correction of the behavior. For example, if I break something, along with you, I clean. If I scribble on the wall, if I tear paper from my book, then I work it in such a way that I learn the new behavior. So if your punishment as such is learning the new behavior without shaming the child in a supportive environment, yes. But if your punishment is shaming the child, making them suffer for it, you're pushing them to brainstem, behavior doesn't change at brainstem, behavior changes at cortex. So I hope that answers the question.
Thank you so much, ma'am. So the next question that we have is, how can we help a 6-year-old with writing skills?
It doesn't matter, age doesn't matter. One, before a child can write, they need to have physical activity. So check if your child can do crawling, can do climbing, can do cycling. These are three very important gross motor activities. If not, start with those. Okay. Second, they must be doing some balancing activity. They should be able to stand on one leg, balance, etc. Because balance is important for concentration. Okay. If you have not done the physical activities and then you're expecting only the higher order activities, it will not happen. So go back to the body's wisdom, get them to move a lot, get them to do a lot of work. Also play in sand, pick up stones from there, use tweezers, work with small, like, ladies' finger pieces. I'm sure all of you have played as children, taking ladies' fingers, sticking out of the wall. All those are very important for the grip that will be used later on for writing. These are things. And of course, you need the core muscle strength. You need to work on these core muscles to be able to write. So first, you always work with the large muscle groups before you work. So normally where we make a mistake, child is not able to write, give more writing. No, go back one step, work on large muscle groups. Okay, that's the first step. Second thing, give also pre-writing, which is, a lot of scribbling, finger painting, smearing, paper folding, use of these small muscle groups. So working with scissors, working with shoelace, buttons, dressing up, all of these things, weight bearing. So, holding a mug, pouring something, filling bottle, closing the lid. So all these different forms of usage of these muscles on an everyday basis. But don't sit down and say, okay, come, we're going to do pre-writing skills. Sit down, 10 minutes of pre-writing. No, make it part of the routine. So tell them, okay, you are the one who has to lock the front door. Locking the front door works on the muscles required for holding a pencil, right? Or you tell them you're the one who's going to fill all the bottles and close the lids. To hold one and to move another. That's writing, no? You hold one and you move the other. So make it very natural parts of their everyday routine. That's the second. Third, you get them to play with dough, all these, mixing dough and things like that. Also small sponge bits in between the fingers, dip it in water, squeeze like this. That's another thing that you can do. You can do beads and thread, all of these activities which involve the small muscle groups. Then move to writing. But before you write on paper, they need to do air writing. Okay, get the child to write in the air, write in water, tub of water, get them to write on sand, get them to write on sandpaper, get them to write on a warm surface or a cold surface. Use other sensory inputs, because then when you give all these multi-sensory inputs, the child will find it easy. So I normally have rubber, no? In Telugu also it's called rubber, right? I'm hoping. So suji basically. So you use that, it has a texture. So you get them to write on a tray of that. Okay, get them to write on raw rice. So when you give different textures, the fingertips understand what the letter feels like. And then when you give them pencil or chalk, It helps. And if you have like a rough cement surface outside your house, give wet chalk. Let the child write with wet chalk. Chalk gives good feedback to the brain. And then go to pencil, crayon, and all those things, these fancy things that we give them. Before that, give them natural things. That's always the best. Apart from that, have a torch. I'm sure all of you have torches in your house. Switch off the lights, let the child write with light in the darkness on a wall. These are all ways in which the brain can learn a lot. So I hope that helps.
So writing is not about only writing. There's a lot of things that
Writing is the final thing. No, it's like a wedding, right? So I'm sorry I'm using that example, but it's like marriage is something that needs a lot of things. The wedding, no, we always highlight the wedding. The marriage is different. Writing in that sense is an everyday thing. Don't talk about only the putting it on the paper thing. It has so many things for the brain. So I hope that answers the question.
So what will be the average age of a children when he or she starts writing?
You ask me, I'll say never. Okay, it's not something that all of us enjoy, but by and large, 7 years is when I would expect children to write. The later, the better. Because before I can writing is a form of symbolic language. Before that, I need to be able to use language in different forms. I need to know how to communicate my needs. Now, Pallavi is asking a question. I don't understand Pallavi's question. I'm just sitting there. Then I have no use for language. If I can't understand basic conversation and how to respond, then writing is useless. Right? So writing should involve a huge component of thinking. So I would say till 7 years, let the children explore and think. Let them learn problem solving. Then give them writing, they'll do it on their own. Because children on their own, if you notice, they'll just be taking things and scribbling. Children will do that. So you shouldn't teach it explicitly. Come here, I'll teach you. A child was happily scribbling on the wall. Mother called them, said, come, let's write ABC. Interest in writing stopped. Because
Yeah,
exploration is different. Exploration is different. Exploration is where I drive myself to learn. Right? So I hope that answers the question. So writing is not about writing. It's about all these other skills that the brain needs. Otherwise, Pallavi, what will happen is what we call a splinter skill. Child will know how to use these muscles in one situation, cannot use it in another situation. So that's when the child will be very good when the mother says, write A, write B, but then the exam cannot write. That's a splinter. It won't generalize in a new place. So if you do it in all these ways, the child will be able to do it irrespective of whether mother's there, teachers there, they do it on their own. So I hope I answered that question.
Yeah, yeah,
Roundabout way, but I hope it helps.
it was a lovely explanation. Thank you.
So the next was from Arya. How to manage anger in children?
First, if the mother and father are getting angry, that is the management first. Then the child will naturally manage anger. First rule. Okay. Second rule, anger is a very beautiful emotion. I would never control anger as much as I would regulate anger. Okay. Anger comes when I want to change something. So let's assume I don't like Pallavi's question. Pallavi, I'm sorry, because you're the only one I know on this panel. So I'm using you as an example. Let's assume I don't like Pallavi's question and I get angry. What do I want to change? I want to stop all these questions. Okay. So I use anger. Now, when a child is showing anger, it could be because he or she is not able to use the language that they have to communicate what they want. Right? The child could be burdened by something else. Child has not slept well. The child, so the physiological needs. So whenever you find your child angry, go through the boxes. First box is the child slept well. Has the child eaten? Has the child had like a empty bowel and bladder? Check the first three. If those are fine, then go to the second. Right? So go through the boxes in the same order that I gave you. You will know why the child is getting angry.
Isn't that the same?
But beyond all that, most important, if mother and father are using anger to get their way. If father gets angry and immediately everybody listens to him, child says, Appa gets everything when he gets angry. I can also get everything when I get angry. So here, in this situation, parent changes first, child changes naturally. I hope that answers.
Yeah, even if the adults are getting angry, there's always some background to it. It's not just that second in that moment. The same works with the children as well. Yes. The next question is my son is 5 year old and he doesn't use much of screen time. It feels very happy. But my son doesn't listen to our words or listen to what ma'am says in the class too. Without listening, he says almost right answers. Please suggest to me how to make him listen to us.
Leave him alone. Leave him alone. He's already able to do things without your intervention. Why will you force him to do anything more? Number one. Okay. He's able to, this is a highly intelligent child who's capable of doing things through reflection. Please look at it as reflection. He's just paying attention somewhere else, but he still knows what you asked. So I wouldn't do anything for this child, but I would also ask you to observe what he does naturally. What are the things that naturally attract him? Now, for example, I was one child like that. And if you notice, my happiness came from working with nature. I was very good with plants and animals. So the only thing that I did most for concentration was sowing seeds, seeing how the plant comes out. I remember looking at a small plant actually growing for a long time. And you can't say I don't have concentration because I'm not listening to you. Right? So please observe what he's able to enjoy. And these are children who do very well with cooking, because it involves all the senses. So if you want, teach your child baking, teach your child things. But before that, I would say, don't have these unrealistic expectations that he should pay attention to you. If you're a boring person, no child is going to pay attention to you. Okay, I'm sorry I put it so bluntly, but I hope that answers the question.
Thank you, ma'am. The next is, I need to push my child for every small activity. How do I set the routine?
You change first. Okay, because the very fact that you're pushing the child, you're going against what the child understands or is able to do. Right? A child who's able to do something naturally will do it naturally. Second, when I say you change, is it also because you tend to complete all the tasks that the child doesn't finish? If I don't finish cleaning my room, my mother will clean it for me. So the child learns, if I don't do it, they'll do it anyway. Why should I learn to be responsible? Okay, so there are two things here that you would do. One is, if you're pushing the child, is it because your communication is insufficient? So if you want the child to follow certain routines, start with the first box. Check if your sleep habits are clear. Check if your eating habits are clear. Check if your toilet habits are clear. If these are not clear, don't try and change anything else, because without these three changing, nothing else will change. Remember, if you're sleepy, let's assume you're sleepy, no matter how interesting the task, how interesting something is, you won't be able to do it. Your mind is going to remain sleepy. Am I making sense to you? So go back again on the physiological need. Second, model. Are you people modeling completion of tasks? Is the father also constantly being pushed? Did you keep the key? Did you do this? Did you do that? Is the model at home also being pushed and not doing spontaneous things? Then the child is going to observe that. Third, is the child's work being done by others because you believe your child cannot do it? Right? You must allow them to learn on their own. And that's where the change will come. So if I were to give three simple rules, one, please go back on physiological needs. Two, check, are you modeling the right behaviors? Third, are you doing it before the child makes an effort? Because if these three happen, then the behavior won't change. And the fourth, in the new unprecedented times, is screen time very high. Because screen time is very high, compliance is very low. So I would remove all screens and have a lot more time communicating with my child, because when the child feels loved, when the child feels supported, when there is two-way reciprocal communication, compliance or cooperation is natural. Okay, remember when you fell in love for the first time, even without the other person asking you something, you finished tasks, right? You did extra work, right? That's what love does. Oxytocin, I'm not saying only romantic love, any form of love will make you want to do things. So here, if the child is not doing something and is avoiding the task, child is not feeling loved enough. You want the scientific base for it? There are three basic needs for every human being, child or adult. First need is security. When I'm not feeling safe, I will avoid something. So I don't like maths. I'm scared when I have to study maths. I will avoid maths, my maths teacher, my maths book, my maths everything. Right? When a child is avoiding something, he or she is not feeling secure enough. Satisfaction is the second need, contentment. That I will do by approaching something. Third, connection, love. I will do that by relating to people. Here in your child's case, already the avoidance is there. So C is your pushing, making your child insecure. In which case, sit down, work on connecting with your child, letting your child feel loved. Because your gifts and your things that you buy are not love. Love is about letting the child know that I will be here even if you are not able to do something. I'm here for you. I hope that answers the question.
Thank you, ma'am. And the next question we have is from Ramachandra. My son is 5 years old. He destructively moves frequently from one activity to another. How to engage?
Children will concentrate for age plus 3 minutes. If he's focused for 8 minutes, leave him alone. Don't expect that children will play with something for 1 hour just because you bought the toys for them. Okay, attention span max is age plus 3 minutes. Okay, what you may need to do is to let him know, I've finished playing with this. I'll put it out, I'll put it back together. So you say, come, let you and me put this back together and then take out the next toy. Set that as a habit slowly. And it takes, like I said, 90 days to set the habit. Don't expect that today after this workshop, you went and became very kind to your child and said, okay, come, let's put this back. And from tomorrow, your child will put everything back. It doesn't happen that way. It takes about 90 days to set the habit, and you need to remain consistent. So every time he finishes playing, you say, come, let's put this back together. Very gently, in a very gentle voice, say, put it back. Very, very easily, very firmly, remain consistent. You say, okay, I know you want to play with this. We'll keep this here, but I want you to put this back. Let's put this back together. So keep doing it repeatedly. And the child knows, if I want to take a new toy, I need to put back the old toys. Set that as a habit and join them, because the best way to change behavior is to join them. You don't become Hitler suddenly. Hey, put it back. No, nobody will do it. Okay? When I feel respected, I will cooperate naturally. I hope that answers.
So being consistent as a parent is also very important in setting up the
Balanced and consistent. I think these are the two key goals with any relationships, not just parent. In a marriage, in a teacher-student relationship, these are two important: consistency and balance.
All right. The next we have from Miss Vaishnavi. Ma'am, what to do when your kid imitates adults and tries to behave like them? Like
Normal.
them most
Don't
of
do
the
anything. Don't do anything. It's normal. It's part of play. Teacher, doctor, all of that. Just enjoy it. Don't go and take video and put it on Facebook and all. Just leave it. I know many parents are destroying children by going and taking videos. Just leave them, because we've all played these. We've all played these. I'm sure all of you, dressed up as something. I remember when I was a kid, Fulan Devi was very notorious in the Chambal Valley. Apparently, I used to go around with a gun and all because I was so excited about the story of this woman dacoit. Okay, so I mean, I'm not a dacoit now, but at that time, it was the most fascinating story for me as a young child, right? So different children. So there'll be children who pretend to be chefs. I have a child now I'm working with who's very excited about this guy who's doing the shoe polish. So he says, when I grow up, I'll also do shoe polish, and the parents were appalled. But the point is, for him, just that excitement of looking at something that's different from what he finds at home is normal. So children will do this imitation till about 8 years, 8.5 years. It's normal. Don't worry.
All right. My son is scared of sling, slide, playing in the dark, no climbing. What do I do?
So this is a child that's been sheltered a lot as a young child, so has not explored. If needed, you could meet with an occupational therapist who's trained in sensory integration therapy to just work on 1 or 2 sessions. It would help your child greatly. Okay? Yes.
Okay. While explaining something to my daughter is always very excited. Uh, can you please suggest to explain the things? Sorry, I didn't understand the question.
I think she's not listening to them. She's asking too many questions and they're calling it excitement. Okay. So if
Okay.
she's asking questions, it's part of her learning. So don't worry about it. And don't expect children to listen to you because you're giving lecture. Instead, let her also join you hands-on. So if you want to explain something, see how you can explain it through an activity. Let your child also be part of that activity. Her excitement will get regulated. I hope that answers.
My younger one is very dependent on the elder one for play activities. How do I make him do it on his own?
You will step out of the way and let them form their own equation. It is a separate relationship and you have no business there. When children are forming their relationships, don't go and disrupt it. Brothers and brothers, sisters and sisters need to have their own equations. Don't expect that he should become independent. Remember your own childhood, you had friends of all age groups. This generation, unfortunately, has only their siblings. So don't go and disrupt that. Let him learn on his own. I hope that
Aarti, in the
Yes,
same
ma'am.
tone, I would ask you, maybe parents' question. Okay, I don't interfere when they want to play, but what if they're having problem, sibling rivalries, or
even more reason why they shouldn't interfere. Because if I have a problem, so let's assume, Ranjita ma'am, you and I have a problem. How can I get a third person to come and solve it? A problem can be solved only when I choose to communicate and you choose to communicate and we decide to meet halfway. And children have to learn that nature creates brothers and sisters so that they figure out how to deal with life outside the home. So when parents interfere, it disrupts that process. And then later on, when property division and all come, you have to get mediators for everything. If you learn how to communicate, you don't need mediators. I hope that answers the question in the most solid way
I
possible.
hope parents are not thinking it's so rude that we are going to be interfering in my child's life. Yes.
No, the thing is, ma'am, again, in
I'm just
perspective.
talking from the point of view of parents. Yeah.
See, I'm a little blunt on all these things because somewhere I think we should start having things in perspective. We can't be so sensitive that we can't address the truth. Okay? Remember, when you grew up, you did fight and then you did make up because children have a natural need to play with each other. Okay, so when there is a natural need to play with each other, they will find a way to work with each other. When you go and do that, when you go and say, this is how you should do it, this is how you shouldn't do it, you become the judge. So first of all, you're not allowing the child to reflect on the problem. You're not allowing them to find out, I could be wrong and I need to change. You're not giving them the chance to apologize. You're not teaching them to take turns. You're not allowing them to do the basic human decency things that are required. These are the people who will go up to become trolls and bullies because nobody's ever questioned them in the past.
One more question. Maybe
Yes.
the age group of the older child also needs to be asked.
Ma'am, it doesn't really matter because see, ultimately, it is a relationship between two people. See, this is where in India we have a big problem with relationships. So mother-in-law and daughter-in-law have a problem. They have to sort it out on their own. They expect a third person to come and sort it out. It can't happen, right? Within a team, if two members in the team have a problem, they expect the leader to go and sort it out. That cannot happen. If two people have a problem, they need to sort it out. The leader at most can say, listen, you're working together, see how you can figure it out. You don't need to be best friends, but you need to find a working equation. So if they do not learn it within the home environment, they can never learn it outside. Imagine if I don't even have good relationships within my family, how will I ever be able to have good relationships outside? So I'm a little blunt on this because relationships.
No. I agree with you. I'm totally with you. But I'm just trying to think from parents' point of view. If in case they're taking, oh, how can I? So I just wanted to put it from their front.
You should just send them a couple of other videos of mine where I'm a little more blunt. I think they'll sort of understand that this person just.
No, because most of the parents must be having their first workshops.
Right.
Parent, for all you know. Like we've been in this field, we know what it all means. But if it is for the first time, that particular parent may not take your input.
I understand very much.
I want everybody to listen, debate, ask. We may call Mrs. Aarti once more, hopefully. We will sort out any other work. Okay, over to Aarti.
Ma'am,
I think sorry, 1 minute. No talking directly. Hopefully, we'll finish through these questions.
Yes. Ma'am, actually, I have a question related to this as I have two kids and they are like 2 years. One is 4 years, the other one is 2 years. So when they like fight with each other, like while playing, then
there will be violence.
We leave them.
Yeah.
Then they start, beating each other, pulling the hairs each other. Then we have to interfere. Should we or we should let them
so,
do that?
I'm glad you asked this question also because of the age group. See, it's 4 years old and 2 years old. Both children are what we call egocentric, meaning they don't know turn taking. They don't know how to share. They don't know. So if the elder one takes the if the elder one is 8 or above, somehow they'll give in. But since one is 4 and one is 2, I'm sure you're a very exhausted mother. I'm sorry, but I'm sure you're very, very tired because this is the age when both of them are exploring and fighting and all of these things. Maintain safety. First rule: maintain safety. Let them not have any sharp objects and things like that. Secondly, when they hurt each other, okay, as long as it's not very extreme, just let them also learn to tone it down, because I need to know that hitting doesn't solve anything, and that can happen only with each other. And when they bring it to you, just calmly listen to the whole thing and say, okay, let's see what can be done here, and leave it at that. Let the children find the solution. Usually what will happen is we'll tell the elder one, okay, his little one, leave him alone, and the elder one is going to feel very resentful. Mommy is always taking that one side. It becomes a problem. So
no, actually it happened, ma'am, we have to interfere to get them, otherwise
no, it is not you have to interfere. It becomes They know that if we keep fighting at this level, Amma will interfere. You've set that pattern. So any behavior starts with a trigger, and then it'll go and it'll end with the same form of solution. You get what I'm saying? So let's assume that if you have anxiety and you've become used to eating rasgullas to end the anxiety, till you get that rasgulla, you will not feel like ending the anxiety. All of us have a pattern like that. We'll have patterns. So when we feel very anxious, we pick up the phone and speak to our best friend. We all have a way in which something is triggered and something is ended. So for your children, the trigger is that we'll start fighting, Amma will come and solve it. So stop being that person. Let them find a new way to do it. Okay. So let's assume that you live on a particular street. If that road is blocked, you'll find another way to get to that place, right? Let your children find a new way to get to the solution. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, there's one interesting question.
All questions are actually quite interesting.
Yeah.
But please, yes.
Before that, I want to say something. I wish I could get back my children to this age. And
No,
things like what all inputs I could.
In Buddhism, they say start where you are. Even now, it's never too late to work on a relationship. So
Yeah, of course. I mean, everything, there's a pop-up coming in. Oh, then I shouldn't have done this. I should have probably taken it this way. Thank you so much for that. So this is Kirti asking that, most of the times children try to do things to impress either the parent or the teacher. Do you think so? It is the right way of doing it? If not, how should that be taken care?
impressing and all, no, learned behaviors. It's not natural. Okay. And this usually starts when we do that very good boy, good girl, can do better words of appreciation, as I call them. Actually, Amma, say good. Am I good? Do I get a star? It starts from that, because naturally nobody learns to impress other people. We just learn to be. Young children just are. Okay. So it's a learned behavior. So what I would do is to just let the child be. When they come and show you things, if you really like it, tell them it's nice. Otherwise, give them feedback. You can say, oh, this area, this color, it could have been different. Give genuine feedback. Slowly start bringing the balance. Remember when Pallavi asked me the question, I said there should be balance and consistency. When I say balance, that's what I mean. Don't always do the superlative, excellent, very good, you are the best. No, just be very genuine about it. Oh yeah, I know you've drawn well. Yeah, I like it. And if it was blue here, I would have liked it even more. Just feedback. Sometimes that balanced feedback goes a long way in developing a better personality than saying excellent, immediately putting it on Facebook, my daughter's drawing. No, please be very sensible about it. It's very important. I hope that answers the question.
Yeah. It's not just charity. Everything else starts at home. Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
And I'm going to rob that from you. I'm going to use it sometime, huh? I like that. Yeah, sure.
My child is 3 years, 8 months. She's so scared of people coming to house. Whenever she hears the bell ringing, immediately she'll run to me and say someone is coming. Even I tell her that someone is coming to our home also. She's still scared when the bell rings or door knocks. When the known person comes to home, she'll not be with them and feels very shy. She takes at least 15 minutes to adjust. How do we tackle this?
First of all, it could be a single child who's not really had much chance for peer group interaction. And unfortunately, the pandemic doesn't make it easier because children do require children of their own age group to first be able to be comfortable with others and then develop this comfort with older people and things like that. However, since this is the case, I would like you to also ensure that you don't force her to meet these people and things like that. She could just genuinely be naturally introverted. Now, most people see me very chatty and think I'm extroverted. No, I'm very introverted. I don't go out. I don't entertain people in my house, etc., etc. So, it's very funny because I have a twin who's very extroverted. And I'm the introvert in the family. So nobody will force me to do anything. And I'm alone. I live like a hermit and I'm quite happy. And this is a natural personality. I'm not dysfunctional. Okay. I'm able to function very well in society, but I don't really need to have a lot of people in my house to feel comfortable or feel whole. But since you use the word afraid and she comes, reacts to the bell and things like that, play would be the solution in this case. Okay. Peer group interaction first and then working with other age groups. That's the first. And again, when you allow play group, right now, of course, with the pandemic, it may be difficult. But when you say peer group, one of the best things to do is to also ensure that she just goes out on play dates and things like that. First 4 or 5 months, she will still be in solitary play. She will play alone, the other children will be playing in the other side. And then there will be parallel play. Two children will play, she'll be here, the other child will be here, they'll still not play together. Then she'll play, this child will be here, they'll exchange toys but not play with each other. Then it'll become cooperation. You need to go through these phases. So hopefully our schools will reopen soon, by June, hopefully. If that happens, this problem should settle down on its own. I hope that answers the question.
Yeah. One question from Vaishnavi. Ma'am, my kid behaves like a grandmother. She always wants to monitor or
I think
point
we've
out.
already answered this question about the adult. So it's a fantasy play again, so that's
Yeah,
fine.
yeah.
And I'm glad it's grandmother and not somebody else, so it's fine. I think it's fine. Yeah.
Yeah, my son is 3.5 years old and is scared of any kind of loud noise, whether it is a firecracker or even if it is a sneeze. He will start crying and ask us to stay away. We have tried positive encouragement, but to no avail. We want this fear to go.
You could, again, in this case, see, it's a very natural startle response, as we call it. If you need, you could meet with an occupational therapist who's trained in sensory integration. Some children may require to be evaluated for auditory integration. You just check on that. Otherwise, outdoor play usually, over a period of time settles this down. Children who've been indoors for a very long time do have extremes of this. So you may need to, sort of get him playing outside, getting him to have this auditory discriminatory experiences that will usually settle this. But if you are not sure how to do it, then meet a professional occupational therapist trained in sensory integration. It will definitely help.
Then we have a question on, there are actually a lot of questions on how to make a child focus.
Remove gadgets, the physiological needs first. So focus and concentration, no, these are all myths that we have, that, the child will artificially focus on things. So there are 3 basic rules for focus. Sleep must be sufficient, play must be sufficient, and 3, most important, the task must be well defined. There must be a clear task initiation. What is the beginning of the task? What is the end of the task? This must be clearly defined. Because what happens if I finish the first time, mother says, write one more time because I finished fast. So child says, let me write as slowly as I can. Otherwise, they'll make me write again. So you can let the child know, these 2 lines are what you will finish. And then after that, the task is over. That's the way to work with it. And also, in terms of structure, please have a separate place when you're saying academics. So in this focus thing, they will not ask for play. They'll ask only for studies related, right? So have a specific place for study, and it must not be the dining table, must not be the bed, and must not be the room that has the TV. So have a separate place. Now, for example, I'm sitting facing a wall. There's a wall right in front of me. Now, I shouldn't be sitting facing a window, facing a door, or the entire room. Because if I do this, then the child's mind is going to keep focusing. So if there's an ant that's going for a walk, I'll be looking at where it's going. Okay? If the curtain's moving, I'm going to be looking at the curtain. So face a plain wall. That's the second thing. Third, never, especially with this age group, the early years, don't sit in front of the child and teach. Sit beside, sit behind. These are the 2 places you can sit. Because you're sitting in front, they're always looking for feedback. And since they're looking for feedback, they're not focusing on their internal process. And unless they focus on the internal process, focus and concentration will never happen. So I hope that helps. And of course, break the task into age plus 3 minutes. So if the child is 3 years old, no task more than 6 minutes. The child is 7 years old, no task more than 10 minutes. So age plus 3 minutes is the calculation that you will have. In between that, let the child get up, do some physical activity for 30 seconds, come back, sit down and start. They'll be able to focus again.
So this age plus minutes holds good for all the age.
See, when my mother was 78, I didn't expect her to focus for 81 minutes, okay? But I'm sorry, I'm a little like dark on the humor, but the plateau, like 10 years is the max I would take this. The gadget addicted generation, see, earlier I would say up to 15, 17 years, you could say up to 20 minutes, you could push people to focus. But now with gadgets, since dopamine highs have started increasing, I would say that 10 minutes is the max any human being concentrates. Screens have destroyed our ability to focus, which is why I said in the first 3 physiological needs, make sure that happens. Play has to involve movement. I'm setting all this right so that if you're using gadgets also, it'll balance. right? But 10 minutes is the max for anybody. Don't expect miracles beyond that.
The few questions coming in up like how to set routine, now early to bed, early to rise. If they sleep late, do they need to wake up?
Model, don't manipulate. Underline, highlight, put it up there. But see, if you want to set routines, first you must have a routine. If the parent does not have a routine, the child is never going to have a routine. Number one. Start always, the routine must always start with sleep habits, because the sleep is the primary driving force for any routine. If I've not rested, I'm not going to be able to follow a routine. Okay, so sleep, sleep, sleep. I started with sleep, I might be ending with sleep, but sleep is primary, because sleep is the brain's way, the body's way to regain its power, regain its strength, regain its learning, regain its balance, everything. So sleep. Once the sleep cycle is set, work on your eating cycle. Once that is set, toilet habits will settle on their own. Based on that, anything else, learning, play, everything will settle on its own. But without the parent having a routine, expecting the child to have a routine, I don't see it happen.
I think most of the answers are coming back to these 6 points that you have given.
Yes, that's why I made it that way.
Yes,
That's why I made it that
as
way.
a key.
And why a piece of paper? Because it can be folded, put in your pocket, put in your handbag. You take your mobile everywhere. Take these 6 pieces everywhere. When your child is misbehaving anywhere, go back on it.
Check.
With the child
Absolutely.
with the child play. Everything is in that piece of paper for you.
Yeah.
I hope that answers everything.
There's
I
one
wanted to do this because earlier my parents' generation would have things written down on piece of paper and be in the pocket always. And we've forgotten all that. We have notes on the phone, but we have 5,000 notes on the phone. We never listen, never read them again. So have this piece of paper, have it in colored paper, have it in highlighted paper, have it laminated. It doesn't matter. But these are the basic rules you would use in parents.
Or maybe cut this paper and put it on the fridge magnet.
Anywhere. As long as you don't look at the fridge every day, or you even pin it on your laptop, wherever you see it. But, have it on you, because it's important for you to realize that behaviors are contingent on all these things. You can't just control the child and change the child by advising them. Go back on these rules in the same order, you'll be able to help a child. I hope that.
Hello, ma'am.
Yes.
Yeah, hi. This is actually I asked a question regarding the sibling one.
Yeah.
Yeah. What I see is regarding my elder one is she's 6-year-old and the younger one is 4-year-old, ma'am.
Yeah.
So what is happening is other things I'm very happy he's learning everything from the elder one, but the self play activity regarding that 6 things you told, right? Self driven activity, it involves him in learning the imagination and all. I see there is something that my elder one is dominating in that. I mean, she wants him to play whatever she says.
The
So how do I?
elder one is she, no.
Yeah, the younger one
She'll
is.
have better language development, so she will tend to dominate the younger one who's still acquiring language.
Yeah.
Right? And this is quite normal, and it's a beautiful question that you asked me. Don't worry about it. As your younger one, who's just 4, as language emerges, this will balance in another year or 2. Don't worry about it.
So I see a lot of times she says and he listens.
That's okay. Don't worry, he's not going to be one of those henpecked children. Okay. So don't worry about it. It usually settles down because boys take a little longer to acquire language. Okay. And when I say acquire language, they may be thinking without language in pre-verbal ways, but as they become verbal, this imbalance usually will settle. Don't.
Other things are beautiful, ma'am, with siblings.
Yes. Everything is beautiful about human beings. It's just that we complicate it. So I think it's a beautiful observation you've made as a mother, and I'm so glad you shared it with all of us because it would help a lot of parents understand. But girls generally, because they have stronger language development, will seem dominant in the early years, will seem dominant. I'm saying that. Okay. Over a period, as boys acquire language and they move on to other skills, this imbalance will settle down.
One more thing, ma'am. Yes. Whenever I see that his feelings are getting subsided in explaining the play activities, I get irked a lot. I mean, I get a lot of anger. I say
the change is required only in you, not in the children. Okay, I know as a mother, you're trying to replay some of the things that you may have experienced as a child. As a child, you may have not had enough experiences to express yourself, and you don't want your son to go through that experience.
No,
right?
no, ma'am, not that. My
Okay,
daughter is very expressive. I mean, I
right,
gave her that whatever thing she needs. I mean, she plays on her own. She builds her own castles, everything. But what about my son is like he likes to play this car activities and all. Due to this pandemic, I am not allowing him to go out and play with others, right?
right.
So he's only playing with his sister.
Yeah,
His sister doesn't want to play with cars and all.
yeah.
She always wants to play with castles, dolls, and all. So she says, "You, if I have to play, you have to play this only." So this is what is happening at home right now.
See, and that is quite normal. But he also plays alone, right?
No, whenever
Okay.
she's attending the class, he's
Hmm.
having only the class for 1 hour.
No, but does he get time to play alone with his cars and all that?
Yeah, he plays,
Then
but
leave it.
I
Then
have
there's
to
a
force
balance,
him.
no?
I
See,
have to force him.
please, no, no, no. Oh God, please step away. Okay.
Okay.
Number one, let me make it very clear. Children need solitary play and children need play with others. Both should be balanced. Now,
Hmm.
when your daughter is playing alone, she's playing on her own, she does her own thing.
Yeah.
When they
Yes.
play together, initially, he may be introduced to her games. Slowly, they will introduce each other to their own games. When he's more articulate, he's able to communicate, he
Okay.
will be able to do it. Okay.
Okay.
Now, you need to step away from it. Don't tell
Okay.
him you must play. See, remember, play is self driven. Play is self driven. It should not be driven by an adult. Within
Okay.
children, when they drive play in a certain way, it's okay. That's completely fine. Am I
Okay.
making sense to you? Right? You're
Yeah.
having these unwritten expectations with which you're trying to push your son to play in a certain way. Let
No,
him
no, no.
figure out what
No,
works.
ma'am. Maybe I am wrong in expressing my question. Whenever
Okay.
she is having the class, I mean, the 3 hours extra class which she is having, he feels very bored. And I tell him, see, you go and play with cars.
So
Don't
who
disturb
decided what he should play with? Who told him?
nobody because
Then
he's
who? Your
acquainted
voice
with.
just appeared, is it?
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
Who told him? I'm asking again. Did you tell him to do something?
No, I'm asking him to go and
So
play.
you didn't tell him, you asked him. So it's the same. It came
The
from your voice, right?
yes,
So
because he
then
says bored and all.
it's not self-driven, no? Play is something that comes on its own.
Okay.
Play has to come on its own. Boredom is good. Children need to experience boredom to decide what to do next. That's why I said step away.
Okay.
Am I
Okay.
making sense to you?
Okay. Now I
The
got.
thing is,
Okay.
as parents, we think that boredom, they're sitting unoccupied, it's wrong. No. Only when I experience that, I will know how to meet that need.
Okay.
Okay. If now I don't have electricity, I don't have internet, and I don't have binge watching, then I will find out, okay, I can read a book. Only when I experience that, I will know that I can read a book. If I told you, why don't you read a book? Why don't you read a book? I buy you a book also, you won't read it. Unless the need comes from within you, you won't read it. You
Okay.
understand what I'm saying?
Okay.
So
Got it.
let your child figure out the boredom and figure out ways to meet that boredom need.
Sure. Sure.
It is set.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm
Got it.
glad.
Thank you.
I'm sorry I didn't get your question initially, but I'm glad we were able to sort it out. Thank you for the
Thank you,
question.
ma'am. Thank you. Thank you.
So, Aarti ma'am, you think boredom is good? It's something that, drives us to understand what we like to do and what we want to do. So, if the child says, I'm getting bored, what should be our answer?
Don't say anything. Why do you want to rush and say become like the superwoman, superman? Like, you don't have to solve all problems in the world. Some things are meant to remain broken and unfixed, because only if they remain unfixed and broken, I will find ways to do something different about it. You get what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
everything is a natural cycle. We need to allow it, and that's very, very important.
The next question is my second son is 18 months old and he is still crawling but hardly walking. And when we try to make him walk, he's getting alerted and not tries at all.
Check your flooring. Check if you have something like granite or marbonite or something which is very, very slippery. So if the child doesn't get friction on the feet, they may be very, very scared to walk and all of that. So check the texture of your flooring. If not, you get your ordinary straw mats, not the plastic straw, but I'm sure in Andhra Pradesh and Telangana as well, you have these rough straw mats. Any texture that's slightly rough, and if you have outdoor space which has mud and sand and all that, please let him walk on those surfaces, because when the child's foot gets feedback from the grains of sand and all that, friction helps them. And 1.5, don't worry unless he's overweight and he has difficulty holding up the body. But don't force the child. If crawling is good, introduce him to new textures, new surfaces. Usually, children start walking with that. It helps. Okay. And if you're still very confused because I've not seen the child, it would be very premature for me to say nothing is wrong. If you introduced him to different surfaces as well, then please have your pediatrician first see him, because your pediatrician would have definitely seen your child through the vaccination process and all that. Let the child be assessed by your pediatrician and then referred either to an occupational therapist or a physiotherapist who can work on the muscle groups. But before that, just see if you can introduce your child to new textures and surfaces. That usually helps a lot of children.
All right. I think this is one doubt that many parents would have. My daughter is a single child, but we stay with grandparents. I'm a working mother. She always wants me with her. Anything like play, eating, activities, she needs somebody with her all the time. Playing has become a task for everyone in the house, and it's not liked by anyone. Please suggest how to tackle this.
See, there's no quick fix solution for this. Number one, because children and humans, adults, we are all relational beings. We all thrive on relationships, right? So if we are very lonely, we all reach out to somebody and things like that. Now, since she is the only child, ideally speaking, as soon as the pandemic rules are slightly different and there is not such a high risk, please introduce her to peer group play because it's important. She has peer group because we can never become friends. Adults and children should not become friends. They need to have peer group, which is important. In the absence of that, you may need to take turns to play with her because she does require that. In this unnatural situation, I would only ask you to be a playmate now. But as soon as there is safety for children to go out, please allow her to play with others. That would be the solution. I don't want to give you an artificial solution of let the grandmother play for 5 minutes, you for 5 minutes. No, there is a need. It's like saying I'm hungry, but instead of food, I'll give you air. It can't happen that way. Okay, but I need to set it in the most commonsensical way. Please allow her to be with the peer group as early as possible. Hope that answers the question.
Yeah. This question is for the current times, the virtual classes and all. My son is 10 years old and the virtual classes have started and he has stopped studying. I think it's a question not just for a 10-year-old. Many parents have talked to me also about it, and we hear it very often. We ask them to study, they are not ready to study. How to make them study? How
See,
to
this
handle it?
digital overload is very, very difficult for all of us. Okay, it causes a lot of fatigue, number one. So,
Absolutely.
which is why, again, go back on the physiological needs. Is sleep sufficient? Is eating okay? Is toilet habits okay? Are you having play? Are you able to explore with your hands? So, since the virtual medium is happening, one is as a school, you could have a lot of hands on activities that are introduced as things that children can do at home. Secondly, as parents, what you can do is have a lot more hands on play because you need to balance how much virtual work is happening along with hands on work because that would be the way in which this has to work. So since March, I've been working with several schools, and we even were able to research what works and what doesn't work. And we found that when you have play-based interventions following an online class, right, it does help a lot of children. So these are unprecedented times. Nobody learns virtually. Nobody learns virtually, which is why I had to give you a paper, make you fold the paper, write on the paper, make you do all of these things. See, even this activity and all. As soon as I did this, there was an aha moment for all of you, right? You're like, oh yeah, it goes to the side. Yeah, it does. And that's really what we need to. And today we live in a day and age where you can go onto YouTube and you'll find all of this content already put out by somebody, either as animation or as videos. You don't need to reinvent anything. If you can just have a good research base, go on and see healthy things like Arvind Gupta's toys are really good. There are a lot of people who put out very, very substantial content. So if you can just substitute that with hands-on do-it-yourself projects and things like that, the online classes will be very useful. But the hand needs a brain, the brain needs a hand. That's the rule. So the eyes do not actually help in learning as much as the hands do. So please go back hands-on, settle it. It will work.
Okay. Makes sense. My kid is not well behaved with my house help. Okay. We both are working and the house help takes care of my kid. This behavior is very much worrying and concerning for us. The house help always complains about my baby's behavior and my baby doesn't like her. We don't have any other option as the schools and daycares are not open yet. Please suggest a better way.
I'm really sorry that this is happening. I'm sure that you are torn between, child safety and all of this. And my personal opinion on this one, and I'm saying opinion because I'm not sure. My personal opinion on this one is, if she's going to be complaining about your child in your presence, she's likely to be rude when you're not there. And the child is probably just protecting himself from an extremely rude caretaker. I'm so sorry this is happening, because if the caretaker is caring, no child misbehaves. And so I would probably, just see if I could find a kinder person. Because when people, children especially, when they're in the presence of kind people, they never misbehave. So I hope that answers the question.
Okay. My son is almost 6 years old. In paper folding or drawing, he is not able to observe what the teacher does and says to do. Is it the lack of observation? If so, how can I help him?
Like I told you, from the visual medium, it's very difficult for some children to immediately pick it up. So what you could do as a parent is to immediately support them to do it hands on. See, because when I'm looking through a screen and then trying to make it on a piece of paper, it's quite challenging for the brain, because several parts of the brain need to go and integrate at the temporal lobe and all of that. Since that's not happening, do it more face to face. Give him a couple of supportive guidelines at home, and then he should be able to manage. Because if I've never done it before and I suddenly am looking at it online and doing it, it's just like cooking, no? You see these fancy recipes online, but if you've never cooked before, you would not be able to replicate it. Someone who's already cooked can look at a recipe online and figure it out. So what I would do in that case is tell the lady, first you figure out how to make your sambar and your rice and all of those things, and then you look at these videos. Similarly, if the child is not able to learn from a video, do a lot of hands-on face-to-face interaction with your child. And then once the child has figured out how to do paper folding, then if they observe what the teacher is doing, they will be able to follow.
So
It's more
provide support initially, and then
yes.
maybe.
Because a lot of things, many times we don't learn from the visual medium. It's a myth that we learn visually. Few people do, but most people don't. So it's important, and that's where I said it's not the content but the connection, right? So build a connection with your child beautifully, so that this connection will take care of this interaction. That's how you work. I hope that helps.
My daughter, 4 years old, doesn't sit properly and have meals. She keeps on running here and there, and I have to feed her along. Second thing, she will sit and eat only if the TV is on. I think you talked about a lot
I've
of
talked
this.
about it
Yes.
already.
Is,
So
is
I
it
think here the
okay to make
parental
them
change
watch
will be the most
TV?
important. Fix one place, and if she runs around, don't run around feeding her. 1 or 2 meals, let her feel hungry. She has to pick up the cue for hunger. This is hunger, and this is how I meet it. When the child becomes aware of the cue for hunger, he'll sit in one place and eat. Okay? Hungry child will definitely eat. So that's how I would answer.
She's saying, however, sometimes she doesn't even bite while watching TV, and if I switch it off, she
Take
becomes
away the
angry.
screen. She's answering, she's created all the problems and then wants quick fix. It won't happen. Remove the screen first. Get the child to feel hungry enough second. Third, most important, don't run around and feed her. Let her sit in one place, and start with small quantities. So if you know she'll eat one idli, start with half an idli, cut it into 3 pieces. Tell her, finish these 3 pieces, you can go. Let that completion be the goal. Slowly increase the number of pieces on the plate. And if she says, I'm not going to eat without TV, you say, okay, then fine, go ahead. Let her feel hungry enough. Sometimes you need to use it so that the body becomes aware of its needs. Okay, you're not being a bad parent. In fact, you're being a better parent by letting the child become aware of needs. Okay, and need awareness is important in good parenting. And I hope that answers.
There's this question, I think a lot of teachers would have this question as well. Some kids won't talk at all in the class for even 3 hours of the class. They won't talk at all. How to make them talk? How to
Don't.
open?
Why you want to make them talk? Just leave them alone. That
If
could be their
everything is
natural
good, don't do
personality,
that.
right?
Let them be.
They're observers. Leave
Yeah,
them, no? That's their
right.
skill. If their skill is observation, why do you want to make them talkative parrots? I may be a great thinker. Why would I have to talk? So please respect those differences. This culture we live in, where extroverts are always put on a pedestal and introverts are considered useless. No, introverts actually have a lot to contribute to the world. And the difference is extroverts have dopamine in the brain. That's the driving force. They need noise, they need communication. Introverts, we work on acetylcholine. I know because I'm an introvert, right? And they would force me to speak, but I do speak well when I want to. If you forced me to do this, I won't do it.
I'm so happy you addressed this point about introverts and extroverts, and also glad that Pallavi asked that question, because it's most probably 40% of the parents would have that question.
Yes. We
And
somehow believe that the
need to
noisy
learn.
ones are the good ones. No,
I'm
actually, the
glad that
observers
you
are very
said,
important.
yeah, and I'm glad that you said that you're an introvert where you're able to function.
Yes.
Thank
And again, it has to be functional, right? See, if I was an introvert and I was also awkward socially, that's a problem. I'm introverted, and when I have to interact with people, I give it my best. But after this, I wouldn't interact. Like I wouldn't want to go out and meet anybody. So for me, the pandemic has been like the best thing to happen because I haven't had to interact with people, right? So extroverts are the ones that have really felt the brunt of this. But having said this, I would not force a child who's not speaking.
Yeah, being comfortable in our own skin.
Yes.
Time.
That's important.
Yeah.
Nancy,
One more. Sorry. Aarti, I'm not sure how long you can take.
How many questions do we have?
I'm just leaving it to you.
Yeah.
Because we don't
No, if
want
the parents would like it.
The parents would love it. I think we have a lot of questions coming.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I noticed that all of them are still online. I mean, normally people would have gone away, but
no, we have quite a few on YouTube also.
Yes, I can see that. So
you informed. Yeah. Over to you, and we love it.
If that's okay, then I can definitely spend some time, because this is such unprecedented times. Everybody doesn't know whom to reach out to for help. So if you can do that, no problem, ma'am. I can make some time. That's not a problem.
Thank you.
I think from the day we become parents, there's advice coming from all the areas, all the ends. Every person is telling us how to be a good parent, but there's no professional advice where we follow and we understand.
See, that's because parenting will never be a perfect process. We'll keep learning on the job. Right? And there are 3 rules I use. Nothing works the first time. Nothing works for everybody. Nothing works all the time. If we can address this, parenting will be done right. Okay, so we just need to be there in the moment, build that relationship at that point. Just because this worked yesterday, it won't work today. I need to know what my child is. That's why I said, listen, don't lecture. Listen to what your child is saying in that moment. Today, I may have a stomach upset or a stomach pain because of which I'm not able to do it. Don't call it bad behavior. I don't know how to say my stomach is paining. Right? So many times it's important to just listen. It helps. Okay. Yes,
ma'am, I would like to add one more question in this regard. Sorry to interfere. So most of us are living with.
I would request the parents to switch on their cameras when they're talking, especially.
Yeah, I'm speaking to a grey tile with a name. Yes.
Okay. Question, right?
Hi, ma'am. Sorry for that. Yeah. So in this regard, I would like to add that. See, now many of us are living with our in-laws and all, right? So when we try to teach something to our kids, they are actually the next gen, right? So they have different ways to explain things. So now when they come and say our in-laws, they'll say, when we were kids and when we treated our sons or daughters, we never used this. So it's like now we were like sort of sandwich between our elders and our kids. We can't follow them and we can't instruct the way we want to do our younger lads. So how to mitigate this, and that makes us anger and again anger management.
I understand. All the stuff. It's a very difficult position that you're in. And I'm glad you brought it up.
I'm facing that, ma'am, right now. I know many working mothers out there.
Yeah.
And I think your husband also addressed the same question about anger management for the child. Pallavi, if you can read that. Gokul's father, I think, has written. Or
yes, ma'am.
Yes.
Yeah, because I'm shouting at my kids and he's not at all liking it. But yeah, he do understand. And I do understand that I shouldn't shout at them.
So are you displacing your anger is what I would ask. The anger is at someone else and I'm showing it on my child. And that's very unfortunate.
That's very rude, ma'am. I don't want to because I never got any shoutings from my mom. She never beat me and I never want that to happen. Yeah. But this sandwiching thing and again, the stress and outer shows and all coming in picture, it's way too difficult for us.
Right.
So how to manage our elders and kids, next gen kids, ma'am? I want that to.
Number one, be very realistic. You're not going to be able to fix anybody. Yes. Be very, very realistic because you're not going to be able to suddenly, like in the movies, transform the mother-in-law, father-in-law, and all that. It's not going to happen. Okay? They're people. They come from their experiences. They come from their wisdom. They come from their space, which may not be wrong. You come from your wisdom, your experience, and all of this. somewhere we'll just need to have meet halfway. Okay. And what happens with working parents is we are dependent on them for many things, right? So they take care of our, see, our child's primary need of safety, they take care of. Right?
Yes,
So
ma'am.
sometimes, so this is where I would ask you to be very realistic. Build your relationship with your child in the most beautiful way you can. Don't try to over control everybody's role in your child's life, because when you try to have like these perfection, when you read these parenting blogs and all, no, first of all, if you're in any of these parenting groups, please come out of them, because people put only highlight reels on these WhatsApp groups. My child said so many things today and all, and then you feel, oh, my child knows nothing. So if you're in any of those groups, please first come out of that, because it will push you to do things that your child is not ready for and you are very stressed out to try. Okay. If you can build a loving relationship with your child, parenting is enough. Everything else is incidental. The only role that I need to play as a parent is to love my child. And by that, I don't mean giving in to everything. It's learning to say when I need to say no. It's learning to set healthy boundaries and to be there for the child in the most supportive way possible. I'll never be a perfect parent. Second, when your in laws, you feel they're interfering in certain things, you and your husband need to sit down, discuss this with your each other first. Because if your communication channels are not clear, you may not be able to communicate with the elders. Certain things need to be communicated even if they're unpleasant. Okay, you have to bell the cat sometimes and let them know that some things are allowed and some things are not allowed, because you are the parents and you have the primary responsibility for your child. Don't shy away from those unpleasant things, because if you allow this, the next step will be even worse. So some things, and you have to choose the right time to communicate these things. So, if you're already arguing, don't bring that up. If the child is already cranky and crying, don't bring it up. Sit down, have a decent discussion like you would have with adults. Okay. They may not immediately respond, and that's okay. You may need to do this several times. Let them know. And I use a simple set of rules. Number one, let them know. So discuss with your husband, have the clarity. Let him and you, don't send him and say, you go tell your parents. Both of you stand there, face it together, because some things need to be faced together. It's your child's health, and you need to say, Amma, Napa, you speak to them, whatever you call them, Nana, whatever. You just let them know, we'd like to speak tomorrow at 6 o'clock about these points. We'd like you to prepare it also. We'd also have our points prepared. We'd like to have a discussion. Okay. Second, let them know what your points are and what you expect. Take what they're saying, see where both of you can meet this halfway. Because finally, they also want the best for the child. You also want the best for the child. Nobody is getting into this process to destroy the child. Okay. So bringing in that is very important. After this, follow it up the next week. Follow it up the week after that. Every week, make sure that you spend a little bit of time as all the adults making some rules that work. Because some of your rules may be working, some of their rules may be working. Together, you need to evolve what is best for your child. And that is the most important thing that you can do. It won't be a quick fix, it won't be short term. It will be something that's ongoing. It's not short term or long term, it's ongoing, because you have to keep refining it as you go along. But it will take time. And I know it's not going to be easy. It'll make you come up with a lot of unpleasant things. But for the child, it'll be worth it. It's like vaccination, no? When you give the vaccine, it's painful and it causes undesirable effects, but it protects you from a long term crisis, right? So similarly, in relationships, sometimes these unpleasant times help us to reach more pleasant times. So I hope that helps and answers the question.
So, ma'am, I'll try that. Thank you.
Conversation, confrontations, all of those are required.
See, child is most important. Let's not forget that. They will be young only once, and for that, we need to bell the cat sometimes, and it's important.
And I think they have more life to live, more
Yes.
than any one of us.
Yes.
They are most important people in
Definitely.
our society.
The next
Ma'am,
question is very.
just a minute. Sorry for interrupting. There's a process connecting to your earlier answer about being introvert and extrovert. My son is a mix of both. I'm okay because both me and my husband are introverts, so I'm okay with it. But one issue I've noticed with him is that when he's playing with some his peer group, and then there is some issues, problems, or fighting or something happens, and the other person is complaining about him. sometimes he doesn't express, maybe because last time something happened. um, Another boy tried to scare him and he reacted. The another boy called us and told that he had tried to make him do something like this. But my son was not saying at that time, when the boy was accusing him of doing this, he didn't say that I did it because he tried to scare me or he was trying to disturb me or something. So he's a person who forgives easily, so he expects the same from others. He doesn't tell his side, he forgets to tell his side. So how will I help him with this? Because many times with us or with somebody else, like when he has a play date, he gets punished for things which maybe was not his fault.
Who
Just
punishes
because,
him?
like not punishment, like when he's playing with somebody else, with his peers, when they're fighting too much, then we say like, okay, then cut off, like you're fighting with him too much, okay, then no more playing for today. We do that. But it was not maybe his fault, and sometimes we didn't realize it because he doesn't express himself. He doesn't say like, I was not at fault, he did this.
How old is the child?
He's now going to be 6.
6? Okay. Just 2-3 things that I would add here. One, when you're setting a play date up, have a period of time, because sometimes when children are also exhausted with playing, there will be fighting. Number one. Sometimes what happens is, as parents, we let 2 children just play for 3 hours, 4 hours, 5 hours, and then they've reached saturation point, they're hungry and all those things. There can be violence. So just rule out the physiological side first. Second, it's not necessary that every child should stand up and say, he did this, that's why I did this. See, children don't connect the dots like that. Many times they just reactive. Like, if for example, if something poked me on my leg right now, I just have this reaction. I'm not going to say, oh, this is a pin, I dropped it yesterday. I'm not going to use reason there. I'm going to just react to whatever happened, right? So at that point, he did something, I got scared, I reacted. I may not be able to immediately take it to my thinking part of the brain and say that this is the reason I did this. That comes later. And that's where you as a parent can go in and say, okay, this fight that you had, so the problem finished and all, don't react, and you can just say, I'll speak to him later. Don't immediately react and say, what did you do, what did you do? Most children don't have an answer at that time.
Yeah, that
after the child is finished, you just come back and say, how was your play date today, what did you enjoy about today? Speak about the positive aspects of that play date. Okay, was there something you didn't like today? Just put a very open-ended question.
I asked that question later. Later,
Right.
I have tried to address that issue.
Right.
Actually, this is happening.
So then just leave it at that. If he's forgotten, just leave it at that. But take a question, take a story with a similar situation, have animals on the story. Like, 2 bears were fighting and 1 bear was punished and things like that. And you can just ask him, what should this bear do differently? Put it as a story and just leave it as open-ended things and let him come up with answers. Slowly, the brain will start integrating this information. What we expect is he has to know it in that situation with this friend. It doesn't happen that way. Children learn from many situations. So you can use it as a social story. That could be a way to work.
This is actually our neighboring kid. So like another problem is this happens. Sometimes he's not able. So sometimes he gets scolding under the lip. Sometimes from us, sometimes from
Joshua, you're live on YouTube.
Yeah.
Okay.
So no. The point is, again, don't try to micromanage the whole thing. Here, our final goal is that your child needs to learn how to deal with the relationship. Okay, let's not lose the big picture by going into the small details of it, right? Our role is to help our child to understand how to deal with the situation when somebody blames him and it's not his fault. Okay, this is the final thing. So if he's not able to do it in a reactive state, like he's forgotten the situation, just take it as a story, let him figure it out and leave it. And your role as a parent is not to keep shouting at any of the children, because shouting silences your message. When you yell at a child, nothing is communicated except the volume. So I hope that answers the question.
No, I wanted to strengthen him from the inside. I don't want him
so that
to
would
get
be a
scared
story.
when somebody
This is the
tells him something.
age of fantasy. So use it with fantasies. That's how.
Okay, thank you.
The next
Oh,
question.
it's almost 12. Yeah. So I think we could take 1 or 2 questions, because I think parents need to get back to children's feeding routines now. So,
yeah.
Yes.
So one or 2 more questions we'll take.
No, whatever. But I just felt this would probably be lunchtime for a lot of children. So I'm more concerned about that.
Sure. It's very difficult to rectify my daughter once she has picked up a name for an object which is incorrect. However, I may try she will not use the correct word. She will start fussing and insisting that she is correct.
So you're getting into a power struggle with your young child. I wouldn't get into a power struggle with a child. Instead, what I would do is I would continue to use the right word. So let's assume that, I'm using the word cup for this one, and she decides to use, say, something else, like she calls it apple. Okay, let's assume that. And you keep saying, no, you have to say cup. I would continue to use the right word. Okay? Over a period of time, children do change. What we expect is immediate compliance, and which is why she's also testing to see how long can I test my mother with this one. So you're getting into what is called a power struggle. Instead, continue to use the right word. Children usually settle. And after a point, when they start doing the same thing with the peer group, and they go and say apple with the peer group will, correct it naturally, saying, hey, no, that's a cup. And then they'll say, okay, I'll use cup. So that's usually how it changes. Okay, most children, and I'll give you this as a scientific fact, most children will learn something the right way, and then they will have a backslide just to test and see how the adult reacts to it. So for example, I would have learned the word cow, and I'll just say cow to just see what your response is. If you have an exaggerated response, I'll pick up that negative and keep using it to just get your response, because I get entertained by your response. So it's always important as adults to understand when the child is having the backslide, stay neutral, stay balanced, stay consistent, and use the right word. Children will follow. I hope that answers. And it's a beautiful question, by the way.
And we have, I
Thank you,
think, two questions about, one is about food, one is about the tantrums. One, the food is that my child is very fussy. He doesn't eat everything. He wants specific type of foods. How can I make him understand that fruits, milk, those things are.
Don't make him understand, okay, first. Because, when you're going to sit down and reason out, see, this is vitamin and all, young children don't understand it. The way to work with it is to get him physically active, let him feel hungry enough, make sure that the sleep habits are good, and then start with small quantities. So if you want him to start eating an apple or an orange or a banana or something, don't have some 50 pieces and try to feed all of that on the same day. Just let the tongue experience it. Let him get used to the texture, the taste, and all that small piece. Just like, you give those old, when we were younger, we would get small pieces of chocolate, right? We never got whole bars of chocolate. You just give it as taste, number one. Secondly, you need to also make it a fun time activity. Don't have like, this meal time being like this big World War IV kind of thing happening in your house. Like, okay, he has to be fed. No, just do it a very gentle way, saying, okay, let's eat. I'm also going to have, so you can play a game. You can, that story where the cat is, two cats are fighting and the monkey is deciding. So you say, okay, we'll have some on this side and this on this side, and this monkey is going to take this monkey is going to take this, and the cat is deciding. So build a story around it. So make it so interesting that the child's focus is away from the food, and they're focusing on the experience of trying out new things. Okay? Beyond all this, if all young children go through what is called a food fad. So at one point they'll eat only one kind of food and then they'll change. So I used to have this kid who would have only noodles for about 6 months and all that. So slowly we were able to change it. But having said this, unless a child is hungry, trying to change a habit may not work. So try all this, and if you're still having trouble, an occupational therapist trained in sensory integration might help. Because if a child has sensory issues, you may need to deal with it.
Okay. And the last was about temper tantrums. Whenever my child is doing something, if that doesn't go well, she screams, she's throwing things in her hands. One such example is when she tries to keep the cap of a pen or a sketch. If she's not able to do it, she tries 2 to 3 times, and then over the all this time she's fed up. When she is not able to keep, she throws the pen and she screams. Is it natural behavior, or parents need to do anything about this?
So in all of these situations, I would ask the parent to just ignore the situation, because what's happening is the child is also excited about your response in the whole thing, because what you might be doing is probably going and doing it for her, helping her do it, things like that. So many times what I normally suggest to parents is to just play with that game. So if you notice that it's eye hand coordination, so if it's just this, she's not able to do this, I would have other games where she has to fit things, like just put up 4 or 5 spoons and she has to put a lid on that, things like that, just small things that she can, similar tasks. What you can do as a parent is not to take the same task and correct her, but have tasks similar so that she's able to achieve a lot of success. During the tantrum, don't pay attention. When she's screaming and having the meltdown and all, don't do it. That's when you need to remain calm. At that point, if you also get excited saying, no, 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 this is happening, this is easy, don't use words. When a child is having a tantrum, please don't try to use words to calm them down. Because when you use words, it has to go through the same channel and try to regulate. And that's going to be difficult for children. When I'm already having a meltdown, words don't make sense to me. So don't talk when the child is having a tantrum. If needed, just hold them, calm them down, let them know it's going to be okay.
Sometimes I'm relating to your answer to adults as well. You know, when
Yes.
yeah, adults also do the same, right?
Yes, with everybody. So stop talking sometimes. It just works. It works wonders. Because, let's assume that you and I are having an argument. And at that time, I'm using more and more words and more reason. Sometimes when I'm having an argument, we're like, let's think about it for a little while. Calm it down and then sit down and say, okay, these are my points. These are your points. Let's see where we can meet halfway. Sometimes taking that emotional aspect into a regulated space helps us to deal with the situation. So I hope that answers the question.
Thank you so much, Aarti ma'am. I think that's all for the questions. I would request Shikha ma'am to do the vote of thanks. Shikha ma'am.
Ma'am, thank you, Pallavi ma'am. Very good afternoon to everyone here. Aarti ma'am, we are immensely thankful to you for such an insightful, detailed and informative session covering various nuances of parenting at different stages of a child's growth and development. All these months of the pandemic have been a constant struggle to juggle and balance our time between our role as parents and working professionals. We have been all looking for a professional advice or best practices that make us better in our respective roles. Ma'am, your talk today has simplified and I'm sure relieved all of us from the parenting pressures that we carry with us all the time. Your guidance will go a long way in helping us adopt a parenting style that creates a balance between our and our family's mental and physical health, and at the same time subtly inculcate a sense of responsibility, bonding, and good lifestyle choices. We all need to remember that we as parents should not be harsh and judgmental about ourselves. The change that we are looking in our child starts from us. That's what we've learned from you, ma'am, today. The change that we are looking in our child, I think that is the key to the session. Parenting is a process of learning and not a trophy that we get overnight. So let's all joyfully embrace each other and focus on strengthening our bonds. Right, ma'am? And building new skills, especially during these times. Thank you, ma'am, once again. We're really grateful to you for such a session. It's lovely to have you here and your invaluable inputs. I also take this opportunity to thank Ranjita ma'am, our Director Operations, for her constant support and encouraging ma'am. Without you, I think this would not have been possible. I also take this opportunity to thank Ms. Purnima Suryavanshi, our National Academic Operations Manager, Eurokids, Salma ma'am, National Manager Academics, Eurokids, and our very dear and near one, Dr. Shravanti Reddy, our Regional Academic Operations Manager. Thank you to all our coordination team and our IT team for the seamless execution of this event. And above all, thanks to all our parents who have joined us today. We are delighted to have you all here.
And sorry, I want to add Shalini ma'am also, Anju ma'am, Srivali ma'am, all the heads of the branches, Roshni and all. Thank you everyone.
Ranjita ma'am, thank you so much for the opportunity to share, and to all the teachers and teams who made this possible, to each of the parents, and most importantly, our children, because I think without our children, we couldn't have come together today. Thank you so much. It was such an honor and a greatly gratifying experience for me. Thank you so much.